All right, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste, Osaya, Enikitawiya, Ohio. I see you. Manut, Wagwan, Kamsamida, Aloha, Ciao, Habarigani, Akwaba, Madaase, Itase, Jambo, Bimini Kofi, Nindafara, Kukutana, Nalwewe, Boker Tov, Boker Tav, Grand Rising, greetings, Bakwarata, Badakalat Shamihaba, Atnai Kwafe, Kokela to Servants of Christ, Mashanam K. Hello, everybody. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servants of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, of being the voice of the voices, speaking the unspoken. Thank you for being on. As you can see, on location. Keep me in prayer. Has some emergency stuff that we got to take care of, so we're over here at the dealership, basically trying to get some stuff done. So sorry for running late. It's snowing and traffic is acting crazy. Persons forget how to be able to get behind the wheel of a vehicle when it snows. So doing our best to try and do a setup here. I apologize. I wasn't in a position to ensure that I wasn't quite in a position to ensure that I made sure that I could put an announcement out to you all. So I do apologize about that. If you're on TikTok, give me 1 second. Sorry. Alrighty. So trying to get this on, finish the series. Today we're going to try and finish the series today that we've been doing for a little while now. And thank you guys who've been with us on this series. I'm not sure how long this is going to be today, just due to the fact that I'm getting work done on the vehicle. They might have to ask me to come in to run some stuff by me, some things that we found out that are going on. So just keep us, lifted up, and keep me lifted up as we get back on the road, or as I get back on the road today. We once again give our honor and praise to the Most High, Yahweh Alakam. We give our praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Amma, who lives a life that is able to be honored. As always, you can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. I don't know what's going on with the screen. I'm blurry on all places. I think it's just a lighting issue. Because I'm blurry on TikTok, I'm blurry on Facebook, I'm blurry on YouTube. I think it just is what it is. It's just what we're going to have to deal with today. But thank you all. Hopefully you can at least hear me. I see that it's difficult to see me on TikTok. I'm trying my best to get y'all set up where you can see me a little better, but it is what it is. I don't think it really matters what direction or change I have, but thank you for being on. Appreciate love y'all on all platforms. Thank you for joining us, whether you're joining us on the podcast, or you're joining us on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, joining us on another platform. If we are able to do that later on, we thank you for being on with us and spending some time and allowing us to try and get this thing going. So as a reminder, we are finished with the 12 Myths of Christmas that we've been doing on Zoom, but we will meet again tonight. We'll make sure the Google Calendar invites put out, and I'll try to send the link out via text if possible. We're going to watch some stuff dealing with Neely Fuller Jr. and some of his interviews. We're going to watch some of the links. And as we said this evening, if your child is not 15 years of age or older, I'm asking that you do not have them join us today or tonight on the Zoom link. We don't forget that tomorrow I will be on. We'll be doing the 12 Myths of Christmas, so we'll talk about that. And then Thursday will be Q&A, so have your questions ready. And then starting Friday, starting Friday every day through the end of this Julian Gregorian calendar year, we will finish up with talking about Shabbat and some of the ways that what the Bible says about Shabbat, and making sure that we're on point as far as what Yahweh's word says. So we're going to get back on track with that. We're going to, and we'll use that series actually as something from that point on to kind of write out what we need to do every day for Shabbat. But thank you all. Appreciate love you. Thank you for being on. I got a little weird setup, so you might see some things going on or whatever, but it is what it is. Hopefully, at least you guys can hear me. It looks like seeing me on all the platforms isn't working out as well as I would like, but hopefully you can hear me well enough. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. We'll say our Bible pledge, and then we'll get right into today's subject matter. So if you were able to stand to your feet and reverence Jehovah's word in any kind of way, we hope that you can do so, and we thank you for doing so. Right? We're thankful and grateful to everybody on all platforms. Once again, let's say shalom and peace to everybody real quick, and then we can get started. How you doing, Culture Prospect? How you doing, Beck? How you doing, Boss? How you doing, Melon, Luciano? Yeah, we're definitely having some glare, no matter what. I think it's just lighting, because the glare is on every platform, so it is what it is. As long as you can hear me today, it's going to be bad vision today. How you doing? Is it a designer? How you doing? Thoughts with SJ, Makia? I'm sorry, Macchiato. Thoughts, SJ, Sister Shirley, Brother Dwayne, Darius, Sister Michelle. I guess that's saying hello, Melantine. How you doing? How you doing, Big Brother Thomas? Praying for all to try and send something as soon as we get an opportunity to. How you doing? Is it D Gums? Slightly annoyed. Twin. Brother Dwayne, if I didn't say so already, girl pink pancake, is it? Keith, user 1392887, etc. Larry Jones, Sister Sherry, Jacob, Hoo, Janine, Minister Select Crystal, Barbecue, David, Aries, King James, and anybody else that's coming on. Thank you so much. Thank you for finding us over here, as they have for about until December 30th. We can't go back on Kofi_43. So prayerfully everybody will find us over here. I know I'm running late once again, trying to get through all this traffic and all the snow and stuff to get over here to deal with this vehicle. But thank you all for being on. Let's go ahead and say our Bible pledge, and let's finish this dynamic series. All right, you can just repeat after me. This is my Bible. This is my sword. In this will I trust. For Yahshua is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible, and this is Yah's word. Hashem Yehovah, Amen, which is in Yehovah's name, His Shem, His authority. Amen. Alrighty. So we're going to continue with the series, Neely Fuller Code. This is part 11. This will be the end of this series. These are all recorded. You can find them on Facebook. You can find them on YouTube, on a playlist. And you can find bits and pieces of this on Patreon, bits and pieces of it that we have on different parts of social media. And prayerfully, this is something that helps to guide you. This is based off of a book called Neely Fuller. I'm sorry, the book is written by Neely Fuller, and if you look up Neely Fuller PDF, you might be able to find it. I was going to go come from a specific page today, but just because of setup and trying to get stuff together, I'm not going to be able to do that. But if you get an opportunity to go into the book, and you can start reading and writing and looking at around, I believe it's around, what is it? If you look at, I'm not sure exactly the page. I think you got to go around page 200 if you're dealing with one edition. There's another edition where I think you have to go around page 260. This book is called The United Independent Compensatory Code /System /Concept. Once again, it's called The United Independent Compensatory Code /System /Concept. You can get it for yourself. It's designed for you to read. We've been using it and using little bits and pieces here or there to kind of get the context of it. It's a book designed to make sure that there's a code that we utilize in order for us as a people and us who want to escape the prison and even prism of racism, white supremacy, right? So if you're looking at trying to get the book, I think it's going to be around page 200 or so, where you would deal with where it starts talking about religion. That's the out of the 9 major areas that affect humanity throughout the known universe, as far as the language of the book says. How you doing? Double OG, Triple OG, thank you for the love. So if you're looking for it in the book, that's where you would find it, and you can start reading around there. You said you don't know what racism is? Well, let me give you a brief description if we just use words. ISM means a system. So race is a what? A competition. Before it became about color, due to evolution, right, through the prism of persons such as Carl Linnaeus, and then later on Charles Darwin, right? If you look at Charles Darwin's book, the one that he got famous for is actually the one written in 1859. The actual full title of Charles Darwin's book is The Origin of Species, the Theory of Evolution by Means of Natural Selection, or the Survival of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life. Race is interchangeable with the word species as far as that context, right? Because species used to be looked at, then they said species were in race against each other, so they actually called them animal races. Then they started saying that different types of human beings came from different types of animals, meaning that therefore there were different human races. Then it was put into 4 categories. You had white, red, yellow, and black. Not because that even makes sense scientifically or color-wise, but because that's what the persons who came up with that system decided to come up with, right? And then after you deal with that, then you have to deal with racism being a system based off of a race. So technically you could say when you look at the Olympics and there's a 100-meter dash, right? That is a race, but there's racism. There's a system set up, and if you practice, you do certain things or whatever, you can be on top of the system. It favors those who are faster, et cetera, et cetera. That doesn't mean that it's a bad system per se, but that is by definition racism. That's why we're not just talking about racism, but this book discusses what? Racism, white supremacy. And I'm sorry, Bruder Charlie, if I didn't say so earlier. I feel like I didn't say your name earlier. Welcome, of course, as always. So we're talking about racism, white supremacy. So before somebody tries to say we don't know what we're talking about, or you're making up words, yada, 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 you actually have to look at the context. And once again, look into the book that we're coming from so you can find the prism. The book we're coming from, once again, is by Neely Fuller Jr., Neely Fuller Jr., Jr., right? And the book is called The United Independent Compensatory Code/System/Concept. So if you go and you look at that workbook and read it all the way through, or at least listen to most of it, then you can actually operate properly as far as where we're coming from contextually, right? Brother Dwayne, I hope I said shalom to you as well. So in this book, and in this system, and in this series, we've been talking about racism, white supremacy. Today, we're going to end the series, but we're going to talk about religion. And for us, being Negro, being Avda, being Hebrew, being Yahashua, being Israel, we have a different way of looking at this as well, right? How you doing, Lemire? I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. How you doing, Sister Iska? You said I wouldn't survive an Instagram live? I guess you don't know who I be. But, you can feel free if you are apologetically sound and actually know how to do something apologetically. If you'd like to set it up, look on the link tree that's in the description with the video. You can copy, paste it, find a way to be able to text or email. And if you're actually on something that's on track, we can actually talk this through properly and civilly, right? But persons who usually make those types of announcements usually themselves could not stand. But that being said, if you don't even know the book that I'm talking about, you probably want to read that through before you're going to end up trying to debate me on something that you might not have knowledge over. So the book, once again, is entitled The United Independent Compensatory Code/System/Concept, written by Neely, Neely Fuller, Fuller Jr., and the name of the series is called Neely Fuller and Code. All right. So thank you all for being on, and thank you for that, and thank you for even questioning me. I appreciate it. It usually shows me where persons are at, especially when they don't ask the right type of questions. But that's what we're here to do, is to help those who actually have ears to hear, that they might be able to proceed properly. All right. So when we talk about racism, white supremacy, not just racism, because yes, there technically can be many different forms of racism, but we're talking about racism, white supremacy. How you doing, Sister Deborah? And those who are fighting against any system that causes persons to be looked at improperly due to the color of their skin are persons who really don't care about humanity, right? They don't care about all known living beings in the known universe. All righty. So we're sitting here, I hate evil. That includes racism, white supremacy. I hate evil. That includes misogyny. I hate evil. That includes misandry. I hate evil. That includes, what has become modern feminism. I hate evil. That includes those who are against the Most High, right? So racism, white supremacy, saying that somebody's better than somebody because of the color of their skin, we would more than likely say that's evil. Now, if you don't count that as evil, right, we got an issue, or you have an issue that you should probably deal with. All right. That being said, let's go ahead and get into this. So when we talk about racism, white supremacy, and religion, right? Now remember, we're really using this term religion the way Neely Fuller does, but religion can be anything. It doesn't have to be so-called spirituality. How you doing, Lilu? Right? Religion doesn't mean that you are talking about spirituality. If one, right, like today, I'm drinking coffee. I also have some water, right? So let's say you're going to drink water today and you believe you should drink water every day. Well, if you drink water, right, and I drink water today, or you drink coffee and I drink coffee today, and you're somebody who drinks it every day, and let's say I drink it every day, well, guess what? We both share a religion by definition, because it's a legion of persons who repetitively do the same thing. So there's code, but also too, we're going to be faithful to the word of Yah, right? So if we're talking about religion and what somebody does religiously, right? Somebody might go for a run today. If you go for a run every day and somebody else does, you share the same religion. So we're not just speaking from a context of what do you believe as far as spirituality, but we're talking about what you do every day within a system, within a culture, right? How you doing now? Listen, and I'm sorry, go in the room, right? So when we talk about religion, we're talking about what somebody's repetitively doing every day, but obviously Neely Fuller is speaking from the perspective of what a belief system is. So I'm going to speak today to some things that even go into your religion, right? Or what it is that many of you would say is just spiritually only. I'm going to stay in that lane, and we're going to focus on that, right? So in staying in that lane, and thank you once again, everybody who's on the podcast, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and those who will join us on platforms later on. Appreciate love you. Not sure how long we're going to go today, because as you can see, I had to come by the dealership. We're trying to get some work done on the vehicle that just popped up. But basically, we're going to talk about religion. We're going to talk about the religion. I've told you before, if you talk about racism, white supremacy, in and of itself, it is a religion. And it creeps into so-called religions, right? But most of them have the umbrella of religion, of racism, white supremacy. Now, if we're going to talk about even further, remember there's an umbrella, or there's a level further than that, if you will, on the web, that if you were to go up, that is under sin, right? Sin is a word that really just breaks down into kasalav, really is a word that breaks down into you need repentance because you're missing the mark. All right, you from India? Okay, cool. So you know about different sects, including down the fifth part of that, based off of racism, white supremacy that's flowed into that. There's something called the untouchables, right? So you're familiar with the topic to a certain degree, right? So when we're speaking on these different things, we have to have an honest conversation, honest dialogue, and we have to admit, how you doing, Dr. T? We have to admit that the racism, white supremacy, it touches many different places. Now, we've hit some of these points before, but we're going to take a little bit of time to actually dig into them, okay? How you doing, Long? Thanks for being on. How you doing, Ricky? Right? So Ricky, the drummer extraordinaire, percussionist extraordinaire. Let me put some respect on your name. Praise Yah. Those of you who saw a little video of me playing different instruments and stuff like that, especially percussion, the percussion instruments, not just the drum set and stuff, Ricky McCoo, he's the man. He got me to think different and be on some things different, even taught me steel drums. I don't get a chance to practice as much, but the man is a percussionist extraordinaire. I love that, man. I haven't seen you in a while. At some point when I'm going up and down 95, we're going to have to come through 64, or I'm going to have to come and say hello. It's been a minute. Love you, bro. But when it comes to racism, white supremacy, right, and it comes to how it's seeped in, we don't like to talk about the fact that it is seeped in. So let's just deal with some basic sayings, right, or some things that maybe should be basic in our curriculum, but unfortunately is not taught in a lot of assemblies, right? So first things first, if we're going to go there, we're going to talk about something called iconoclast or iconoclastism. If you're not sure what an iconoclast is, we'll look up the term icon, right? But the iconoclast or iconoclastism is really a setup where there's persons through a system that are usually paid, or to make sure that they're doing it because of appropriation, to therefore reverse engineer what it is they're going to define or break down. Iconoclasts are persons who will re-engineer or reintroduce something from a different perspective, right? It doesn't have to be based off of color, by the way. Somebody can see BMW make something, Lexus likes what BMW did, They break it down. They figure out how BMW did it. They then make their own version of it, right? But they present it in such a way to where they don't give BMW credit. They basically appropriate. They take what BMW did, they break it down. They say, okay, now we as Lexus, we're going to do yada yada yada. And when they represent it to you, you seeing it, and so many persons buy it as Lexus that persons don't even look to say, oh, this was BMW from the beginning. All right. Same thing happened with the word of Yah. Right. Persons are so busy telling you that we can't be Israel. How dare we say we're Israel? How dare you say this or that? You must be a racist. Are you anti-Jew? Are you anti-white persons? Are you anti-this? Are you anti-that? You'll see all these different things. You'll hear all these different things. And then a lot of persons don't realize, well, wait a minute, if I just simply do the research, even within the 66 books, for those of you who just use the 66 books of the Bible, how you doing, Brother Lamar? And you do your research and you go down the rabbit hole, you'll discover real quick, oh, wait a minute. You know, the Bible discusses Samson having locks. The Bible talks about that, you know, King Solomon, due to the fact that more than likely he was making sure he took care of his skin, that the sun seemed to bounce off it, right? To bounce off of his skin in a certain manner. Wait a minute, Yahashua HaMashiach is mentioned as being somebody who's dark, as if he was burnt, as his skin looks as if it was copper or brass that was burnt in the furnace. Not just burned in the furnace, but burnt in the furnace, meaning he had extremely dark skin. He has hair like wool. If you even see it says that he has eyes that are piercing like fire, you can look up how Moors are described and how Moors in Spain, right? So African, but are also still over Spain at the time. They're described by European monks who will give more credence to what they say because of the color of their skin. They say that these persons also look like they have fire in their eyes. Why? Because if somebody is very dark, and if somebody, you know, is focusing in on you and they're from far away, it can actually bounce light differently, especially from the look of it, right? So you see very repetitive themes in that, right? We can go on and on. The fact that Moses was hidden in Kemet and they couldn't tell the difference between him and a Kemetic person. The fact that why am I saying Benjamin? Benjamin's brother, Joseph. His brothers couldn't tell the difference between them just looking at him. We can see that obviously persons of color are of this family called Israel because they come from Israel, meaning Israel himself would have been a person of color, meaning that, you know, you keep on going back and forth. And so somebody that we know, a Negro, would have been called at one point before they changed the definition in the 1500s, a Negro would actually have been referred to as one who followed the Tanakh, or the Torah, or the God, or the scrolls, or the law, even, right? Which now you guys call Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. So if we know these persons are described in the Bible over and over again, and what they look like, and saying that even Kemet not only married into them, but left Kemet with them after the plagues, and that Cush was married into them, etc., then we know that these persons looked a certain way. And we know that just scientifically speaking, historically speaking even, and historically speaking, that as we go back further, right, as we continue to go back and look at every so-called race, everybody gets darker. Shalom Barak, right? Mashalom Khe. So everybody gets darker. This is not a maybe. This is a fact. And not just a fact, but if we go through the contextual fact and tell this properly, we can reveal the truth very easily. As Neely Fuller Jr. taught us in this book, we should not just be saying facts, because a fact can be twisted. A fact does not mean the truth. A fact should be used within context to reveal truth. You said just BC, the symptom is so afraid of the original people, they have kept them down as confirmation. Right. Aman, we're on the same path. Okay, how you doing, Ardale? So when we speak on this today, I want to come from the context properly, and I want to make sure that we're revealing truth. So when we deal with religion, once again, you deal with an iconoclast, somebody who took something that once was thought to be one way and turned it into something else. We talked about yesterday a little bit about Cesare Borgia, right? And with Cesare Borgia was the son of a pope. The pope changes a lot of stuff to try and make sure he can trade different things and make money and all this stuff, different types of things. And the Pope puts his son, Cesare Borgia, makes his son he starts painting Christ to look like his son. Before that, Christ was always considered to be what you and I would call today a black man. If you look in books in Ethiopia, if you look in Bibles in Ethiopia, if you look in Bibles in the Roman Catholic Church, if you go to Russia, if you even look up something called the Madonna and Christ child, which, by the way, Madonna is not a term for Mary. Madonna is something that's worshipped by somebody else's culture. We're not trying to get into all that, okay? Right? Madonna is not somebody that we worship. Madonna is not somebody we pray to. Mary's not somebody we pray to, right? Mary is different than Madonna. That being said, Madonna, showing iconoclasm, eventually Madonna, or Mary, would be changed into Madonna because they had a temple where they worshiped Madonna and her child. So they began to worship, they just changed it to Mary and her child and kept the name Madonna. And they changed the child into Christ, right? So that in and of itself should show you that obviously something's changed. That within itself should show you that something's changed, right? If we are to be honest historically, if literally somebody would change Madonna into Mary and then say we'll change the child into Christ, then we should recognize that. So I want to make that very clear. That being said, also too, it shows further how much iconoclasts have damaged the truth. Because if you look at a Madonna and Christ child, and you go to Europe, many places in Europe, you'll discover that Madonna and Christ are black, right? Because it was known. You'll see many pictures and many descriptions where you'll see very clearly in the description, right? The descriptive depicting of Christ, that you'll see that there are many even pictures out there. If you would just do a quick Google search, you would discover that there's pictures of the Pope going to different places and praying to the Christ idol. And so it's an idol. However, in seeing the idol, you see that the idol itself is what you would call today black. Right? This is something that is known. Iconoclasm affects many different places in many different ways. Right? If you were looking at pictures of Toussaint Louverture, he's made white in the Dominican Republican side, but he's still black on the Haitian side. Right? Because you're not supposed to, because of racism, white supremacy, you're not supposed to tell the truth about the color of Christ or the color of any figure that actually showed any kind of smarts, unless you're going to down them, right? Even figures that fought on behalf of us through religion, right, so-called religion, even figures like John Brown are made to be crazy and they push him down, and they'll say, see, he did things, he fought against persons, how dare he, and they try to make him look bad because he was a white man, a white pastor, who believed that chattel slavery was evil and it should be gotten rid of, right? So even to this day, when I've gone and visited places that he was and looked up things about him, and you go to Kansas and you see stuff about the Kansas Wars, and you go up to where, I forget where, forgive me, it's like where Virginia or West Virginia is, something like that, Harper's Ferry, and you go over to Harper's Ferry, you'll see that they try to talk bad about him, while having Thomas Jefferson looked up to in the same place, because Thomas Jefferson gave a speech. And you'll look up and see at the same place that Thomas Jefferson is looked up to as a great man, although he himself is what? Chattel slave owner, Virginia slave owner, just like all the presidents were up until you get to up until you get to Andrew Jackson. All of them had to be Virginia slave owners or work for Virginia slave owners. That's just the truth, right? You said that part, speaking of intelligence, authority, right? We're not supposed to be intelligent. So you have to always bring us down. So you use iconoclasm, right? You try to shift the narrative. Even in a sense, when they get on us and when they do the stuff they do against us in social media, where we tell the truth, it's iconoclast. They're trying to take what we're saying, deny it, right? Report it as something else, and then they try to present it to you as no, man, that stuff, he's just making stuff up, or he's focusing on the wrong thing. But if you're focusing on revealing truth, is it wrong? Right? Excuse me, I don't have any tissues with me. But we have to realize and be honest that this is purposefully done. That means with purpose, in purpose, on purpose, with intent. This is not a random thing that's happened. And so this has even made its way into your religion. So persons were hired to ensure that they got rid of the truth, including color. Right? This is before, right? I don't know if you can say quite what I'm talking about is no, it's definitely not before chattel slavery, right? But this is the truth. Even something like this. Why is it that people believe that when the Bible, I don't even know if some of you've heard this, but we're just gonna, once again, we're just telling historical fact. A lot of you might not even know, or maybe you never heard of. Oh, Aaron's fine. I think Aaron's agreeing with this. That's Aaron Griffin. That's he's one of ours. That's our brother. He ain't on that time, right? I think Aaron's fine. Aaron, you'll be able to come back on in a second, right? But at least I believe you should be able to come back on. But yeah. So when we're speaking on these things, you have to realize. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, Aaron's fine. Aaron's cool. I think he was saying nope as far as we can't say, he was agreeing that you can't say that this is done on accident, or this is done on accident, right? You said turning Black Lives Matter into All Lives Matter, altering outlooks, right? Iconoclasm. That's basically what it is. So iconoclasts have been hired over years to repaint, literally with a brush, to paint out color. Even if you were to go to Kemet and you were to look on the walls of pyramids, you'll discover as you look up on the walls that there's some places in some of the pyramids where it's like, why are they so light? But then go to a place that hasn't been touched yet and it seems like they're dark. Well, persons are even painted to go over things historically on those walls, the hieroglyphs, as we call them today. You said Russia opened the vault of the hidden truth? Yeah, to a certain degree. That was, the truth was out there, and Russia's kind of trying to get some stuff. We forget Russia, they were slave owners and stuff too. But they're very great at trying to politically repaint who they stand for, right? But I'm glad that they did some things to reiterate the truth for sure, regardless of why they did it. But these are the things that we're talking about. Is that there's so much iconoclasm, it's actually difficult to keep up with what? There's so many different things that have been changed, including when I say, hey, like something as simple as this. Have you ever considered the fact that if you're reading the Bible, no matter what version you're reading, it's still a version? I don't care if it's a Geneva Bible, I don't care if it's a King James Version, I don't care if it's written in 1560, 1590, 1611, it's still a version. That means that it has been changed. Even if King James, I lean towards this way. We won't say this is 100% fact because we don't 100% know all the details. But if you study and do some research, especially about his parents, King James looks like us. That being said, it's still a version of the Bible, right? It's still a version of it, and we haven't gone to the original. So the fact that we don't even think past that should tell us something. The fact that we don't even realize, even within that before it was in English, it was in Latin and Greek, right? English was considered to be the language of the poor. When King James becomes the first pope, when King Henry VIII becomes the first pope of Protestantism, right? Then he basically changed the stuff and changed it into English as basically a middle finger of sorts to the Roman Catholic Church. How you doing, Bruder Richard? Right? He changed it and did that. So even that, you go back further though, that French was the language that they spoke. So the Bible, if anything, if it's going to translate anything, because French were the persons who spoke a certain language and spoke up in a certain way. We went over this at SOC University maybe last month or something along those lines. But if you look up at SOC University, for those of you who are part of that, one of the teachings that we did on language and etymology was, if you go back and see the words that you use, for example, why is it that you say you eat beef, right? But you don't say you eat cow. Well, the reason you say you do not eat beef, you eat cow, is why. You say beef because beef, boeuf, is a French word, right? Cow is a Visigothic, Germanic, English type word. So those who were in charge, the French, they were the ones who had money. They were supposed to be royalty. And so if you were royalty, or if you had the level of getting certain things, basically the reason why that happens is English words, cow, are considered to be things that a lot of persons can't afford to have. You could afford to farm them. You could afford to maybe have one or two of them on your property, and that's what you could pass down, because you couldn't pass down riches, but you could pass down maybe a little bit of property you had. So you pass down cow, or so you pass a cow, and you can't really eat the cow because the cow makes you money. the cow becomes like part of the family, right? But you can eat the cow if you can afford to. So for the French nobility in England, in English territories, what did they call them? They called them beef. Beef was what you put on the table. So basically, there's like an old saying, if you can put it on the table and afford to eat it, it's a French word, right? A lot of words that you use, if you can put it on the table, is usually a French word. If you can't put it on the table, it's an English word. So that's why you have beef and cow, or you have chicken and poultry, right? You have these different words, they change. It's not as simple. A lot of us, we just go, oh yeah, because we eat it, we call it something different. No, kind of, sort of, but the reason is because the French nobility actually could do things that the English regular persons could not. So that's the reason why you call them different things. So once again, the French nobility, who could afford to eat what others could only afford to keep, those in power, they called it something different. Those who didn't have power, they spoke the language of the poor. So in that, we don't even recognize that when we're reading the Bible, a lot of stuff that you're reading, especially trying to get the English version of it, is something that's really supposed to be disseminated unto the poor. How you doing, K1 and only? Right? Poor folk, poorly educated persons, are not supposed to get the truth. This is why Yehoshua says something powerful when he says in Matthew chapter 5, verse 3, he says, blessed are the poor in spirit, the uneducated folk, even uneducated in the spirit. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to you. Okay, well then scroll and have a great day, right? But for those who are okay learning about truth any time of day, continue to stay on, okay? And thank you, moderators. I see y'all on it today, especially since they was messing with us the other day. I thank y'all for doing that. Thank you. Appreciate love, y'all. All right, how you doing, Vic? If I didn't say so, I think I did. So we don't recognize that there's a lot of stuff that was changed for many different reasons. But in racism, white supremacy, a lot of things were changed because those who are supposed to remain poor are supposed to go anywhere. Like, think about why Cain is considered, or why, watch this. One of the things, it didn't happen, I think, until the 1700s, maybe, but probably more like the 1800s. We didn't even realize that if you never studied it, you probably have never heard this. But some of you have heard this, I know some of you have, that Cain is supposed to be the reason why it was okay to enslave black folk. That's what they started teaching, because they didn't want you to know that marked is a character. How you doing, Minister Morel? And the character means is tav, which means to be marked, completed, finished, perfected, the end, even, so to speak, as we use the term end today, right? But they needed a reason to say it was okay to enslave Negroes and anybody who might have one drop Negro blood. So what do? Because a lot of persons started asking questions. They started saying, this is odd, this is weird. Why are we saying it's okay to enslave these Negroes, these black folk, and at the same time we say that the Most High loves everybody, or as they would say, God loves all. And so they said, oh, well, don't worry about that. Cain was marked, and they say that means he was black. How you doing, Minister Shante? Be safe out there. All right, and those of you on the road, especially if you're in the Northeast, right? I'm out here snowing and stuff like that. So y'all be safe wherever you are. Praise y'all. You know, hopefully the signal works well for you guys in the midst of the snow. But this is something that's going on, right? And a lot of persons don't want to have an honest dialogue, honest conversation concerning this and talk about the truth. But yeah, one of the things that they used was they literally changed the entire, thank you, Sister Shirley, appreciate it. They changed the whole thing as far as Cain was marked. They had to change that to Cain was black. Right? This is something Joseph Smith uses in Mormonism, which is why it's okay to say that you have to be white and delightsome. Right? These are things that are part of a worship mentality. Right? If you're a Mormon, I don't care. You want to say, oh, we disavow everything that Joseph Smith said, but you can't, because he's the one that's the foundation of your religion. And he says you have to be white and delightsome. He says the only reason why there's black folk, really, he goes a step further. He said the only reason why there's, so he said that there basically was, this is what Joseph Smith taught. He said that there were Jesus, those who followed the Mormon Jesus, not Jesus Christ even, but the Mormon Jesus. And then there were those who followed the devil and fought. And then the Mormon Jesus won. So those who fought with the Mormon Jesus, they're white. folks, so-called white persons. And the one who followed after the devil, these are persons who are his imps, his demons, right? And then he says in between are the ones who have color because they were cowards. These are things that are in the religion, into your religion. If you're a Christian, you can't deny that Christianity allows for something called, even a lot of you are into the doctrine of predestination. That word isn't even an original word, but predestination is what allows anyone to mistreat anybody else because everybody's already predestined where they're going. And then you just take it a little step further, based off of what? The color of your skin. Like you can argue this stuff until when you have no knowledge of it. You see, right? Thank you for the compliment. You can argue this stuff if you have no knowledge of it, but those who have knowledge of it, that shouldn't be your argument. Like, we know that persons use predestination to do whatever they want. Right? Like, this is a fact. This is not just a fact, but this is also something used to reveal truth. And so persons don't like for you to tell this, but in racism, white supremacy, it's the truth. My name it's in the title of the channel, Kofi, Kofi, right? So you hear what I'm saying? We have persons who are doing their best, right? Who are doing their best to be against the Most High, sometimes unknowingly or unwittingly, because they don't recognize that racism, white supremacy is infused heavily in what's going on. How you doing, Sister Tawana? Prayerfully you're continuing to recover. All right. A lot of persons do not know this, you know? So if we're going to talk about this, nobody wants to believe until you have to say, like, here's another one. Here's a big one. You ready? Here's a big one. This one's not even that difficult. Racism, white supremacy has to be a thing if there's a such thing called the Slave Bible. Shalom. He said they say their world, and so it's because their father outside time. Okay, I see you. Right? Let's be honest now. If there's a such thing as a slave Bible, this is why when we meet up in May, right? Glad to have you back. This is why when we meet up in May, in DC area, for those that are coming, I'm working on trying to get the form together so y'all can fill it out, and then I'm gonna try and start making sure that we start saving the hotel. So y'all be ready. Y'all said y'all coming. I made sure I asked before, so y'all be obedient. That Memorial Day weekend, Friday, Saturday, we gonna be together all day Friday. So try to get there by Friday in the rising. But Friday, Saturday, Sunday, okay, all day, each day, we gonna take over. We're gonna be walking around every day. They're gonna be like, what? Who are these persons? Am I? All right. But anyways, so you know, but we don't want to even talk about the federal slave Bible. So when we go to the Bible Museum, yeah, it's gonna be clear as day. If we really had time, depending on how many persons coming, depending if we got enough, maybe we can even, now somebody gonna have to help. I told you I'm gonna need help putting this stuff together. But we might have to assign somebody, seeing if we can actually charter a bus and go to a place called Monticello one of the days. We'll make that a little extra one day. Right? Maybe we'll even do it live on the bus or something like that. I don't know. But we'll go over to Monticello. And when we go over to Monticello, right, which is Thomas Jefferson's place, if we're able to go there, maybe we can go to Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon's not that far either. Mount Vernon's probably closer than Monticello. So maybe we'll do Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon is where George Washington is. But if you go to Monticello, if we get a chance to go there, if you get a chance to go on your own, Thomas Jefferson has slave Bibles there. He actually has regular Bibles and slave Bibles. And he has slave Bibles that he actually ripped pages out of. That a slave Bible, I think, only has 20-something books in it. Something crazy like that. Some versions of it. How you doing, Sister Donna? But Thomas Jefferson would rip pages out of the slave Bible. Anything that addressed him having to treat human beings with respect that were enslaved, or that could be thought of as being enslaved. Hey, Grand Rising, Sister Monica, how you doing? All right, and thank y'all for coming on. Not only have they changed up stuff on TikTok for us, but I'm also running late because weather, and I had an emergency with the vehicle and stuff, so I'm at the dealership right now. We'll see how long this goes today. I'm not sure if I'll be able to be on as long as usual. right? But these are things that we have to take into account. If there is a such thing as a slave Bible, then how do we say that there's no racism, white supremacy concerning Christianity? Doesn't make sense to even attempt it, right? But that's what they try to teach you and I. And one of the things that they do is they try to give you a guilt factor. You said there's something that got 14 books? Okay, I had to research that. I haven't seen. I wouldn't doubt it. At this point, if there was only one book left and that had pages stripped out of it, I wouldn't doubt it at this point. Right? But yeah, racism, white supremacy causes you to have something called a slave Bible. And this actually helps us in seeing what it does for the Negro, the truth, revealing the truth, because the reason why you have a Nat Turner, the reason why you have a Toussaint Louverture, the reason why you have a Sojourner Truth, the reason why you have a Harriet Tubman, I mean, the list goes on, is because they actually got their hands on the truth. Harriet Tubman, right, is literally called the Black Moses, right? Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. will be looked at, regardless of how you feel about him. I'm just telling you what he's called. He'll be looked at as somebody called Moses for us as well, right? Even he'll preach a sermon, very famous sermon, right? He says, I've been to the mountaintop and I've seen, right, the promised land. He's talking, right, it's him talking about Canaan. Gives a prophetic word. And 5 years later, we know what happens. He says he wouldn't get there with it. He might not get there with us, right? But he's going to tell us what's coming. How you doing, Sister Sabrea? And interestingly enough, persons don't want to think about the dismantling of an oppressive system and having a united, independent compensatory code, right? They don't want to talk about this. But if you, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., in saying he saw the promised land, said that the promised land was not just for us to be free, but for others to be grafted in. And yet, persons don't want us to bring up MLK and tell you, like, hey, he had some things that are more revolutionary than what you want to talk about, because Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., even in the beginning, because he was put in place to kind of silence a more revolutionary preacher. That's the truth. If you do some research, you'll discover there was another Baptist preacher that was over things. That person gets voted out and gets kicked out because he's saying things that are too revolutionary, at least supposedly too revolutionary. And so then Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a very young man at the time, we forget how young MLK and Malcolm were. Very young. How you doing, Jasper? Right? So they, but they bring him in as a young man, and they say, we need you to be more in the nonviolence. By the way, when MLK first started, before he got the position, he wasn't really into the nonviolent thing. He did that because the persons thought that we were asking for too much too soon, that we were too gung-ho, that we were preaching too many sermons, that we're talking about being free. Recall this, Minister Malcolm X's father, if you're not aware of this, do some research. Minister Malcolm X's father was in fact a pastor who also was a Garveyite. How you doing, Yahuwah Tessavath? Excuse me. Right? Yeah, we're going to walk heavy, Bruder. That's right. I got you, right? So his father was actually a Garveyite. Now, if you look at Marcus Garvey, who had a problem with how religion was going because we wouldn't do enough. But Marcus Garvey, when you look at the actual Black National Anthem, I played it a couple of times, and if you've gone to some of our classes, you've heard me play it before. But Marcus Garvey is actually he considered himself not only to be an African, but had no problem being Israelite, calling himself Cush or Ethiopian. And even in our Black National Anthem, which now has become a different version, which is now the Ethiopian National Anthem, but in our the original, not Lift Every Voice and Sing, but the original Black National Anthem, you'll actually hear them talking about Israel, Jerusalem, our weary land, giving things back to the Most High. Like they're using this same kind of verbiage, if you will. Is that very true? Previous member of Ebenezer Baptist Church. There you go, right? So Malcolm's father was actually offed because he was preaching to too many of us N-words about not just how Yahushua wants us to be called to what Yah wants, but also how Yahushua wants us to get back to our culture, and we should make sure that we have a kingdom, a nation that comes together. That's why Malcolm's father was offed. Right? So Malcolm as much as we just go, he was only affected by the Nation of Islam, and we have to actually go back to going, well, Malcolm actually was influenced by his father growing up. He was a PK. That's why he was wilding out. Just kidding, right? Not all PKs wild out, but that's why. But he was a PK. If you don't know what that is, that's a term used in churches for preacher's kid, right? So he was wilding out because of his father, or what? Not he was wilding out, but he was influenced, by his father. His father was a Garveyite pastor. That's who he was. That's what he was. That's what he was raised under. That's what his mother raised him under. You said most do. Right? Some of y'all be like, why are you so tough on Solomon? Because he ain't going to be like the mother PKs, right? He's not a kid anyways, right? He's not a baby goat. But anyways, so Malcolm, that's what he was raised under. Matter of fact, Martin Luther King Jr. has somebody who's tied to him, even though they weren't as close as what everybody makes them out to be, in Rosa Parks. If you know about Rosa Parks, you've been taught and fed this stuff, iconoclasm at its finest, once again, representing or trying to re-represent something that's not even truth or factual, right? If you look up who Rosa Parks is somebody who actually had, Rosa Parks is someone who you will be told, oh yeah, she was just working too hard that day. She was a really old woman. She was tired, and she just was like, enough is enough, and she wouldn't get up and go to the back of the bus. That is actually a story through the lens of racism, white supremacy, right? But if you actually are honest about what happened with Rosa Parks, right? If you're actually someone who is honest about what happened with Rosa Parks, then this is what you'll discover. Rosa Parks was young. Rosa Parks did work as a seamstress, I guess we call it, right? But she had only worked half a day that day. And she was actually heavily influenced by her grandfather, who raised her. How you doing, babe? My wife is on the Honorable Almas. Always check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Love you, babe. Thank you for being on. Right? And thank y'all for the love. And when you study Rosa Parks, you'll also discover that her grandfather was a Garveyite. And Rosa Parks writes in her autobiography, or I don't know if it's her autobiography or biography, but in Rosa Parks, when she speaks on her life, she discusses how she remembers there being meetings at her grandfather's house all the time, and they had to make sure that they were defended from the Klan. And so she remembers literally, she recalls literally, she was supposed to be the hostess, and she would have a problem putting food on the table for them to eat, snacks for the meeting, because when she would try to bring the snacks out to the table, everybody came with weapons to protect themselves. So there'd be so many weapons on the table, it would be difficult for her to put something for persons to eat. So if persons came to this meeting that were trying to get food, you'd have to reach around all the weapons that were put on the table, because when they were coming together, that was what was there. That was the food, or that was the food situation. You had to reach around things because they were trying to protect one another. But you can't have Rosa Parks be remembered and say that, hey, Marcus Garvey and a grandfather who was a Garveyite and one that believed in us coming together as a nation, right? You can't teach that and have that be, that's what influenced her. So now what do? You say, oh, she was just an old woman. Rosa Parks, how she lived that long, and she was in her, we be treating her like she was in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, in the 60s, or in the 50s and 60s. And she lived until what? Didn't she live until early 2000s or something like that? Right? So much so that a lot of us forgot that she even existed. So much so that there had to be, I forget the actor, I think it was even a so-called white actor, but it was an actor that actually had to pay her bills and pay her rent because she had fallen behind. And we just forgot about her. See, because racism and white supremacy has you forget even about your so-called heroes, or the persons we should look up to. How you doing, Sister Shima? The persons that we should make sure that we protect no matter what, our leaders, and the reasons that we have what we have, the story gets wiped over. Right? So whenever Rosa Parks is discussed in a church situation, she's discussed as just some old nice lady that gave her no, Rosa Parks was a G. Right? You study Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks had that thing on her. Rosa Parks was a Garveyite. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Now, I do believe Rosa Parks helped out with the NAACP before everything went down. No, helped out with whatever. Forgive me, somebody had to look it up. What was the religious organization Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was put the head of? they both work for the same organization, or maybe they both work for the NAACP in some way, shape, or form, something like that, whatever the organization was. But they didn't even know each other. Martin then uses what Rosa went through to say, let's go ahead and use this as a launching point. SELC? Okay, that sounds right. That sounds right, or that feels right. All right. You said Claudette Calvin did it before Rosa, but I mean, many persons did it before Rosa Parks. So yeah, I'm not going to belittle what Rosa Parks did because others did it before. But yeah, there's others that did things before her. What I'm trying to say is that the whole thing that was used off of her, right, is that was something. Oh, hold on one second. Hold on one second. Excuse me, I told y'all where I be. So, yeah. So where were we at? Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. You know the two tires you bought last time? If those were the one that was leaking, they would cover the tire. Intended like the ones you did last time. So I got to cover up one. So the only thing you have to pay is the labor and the tax. You know what I mean? So it's like $59 or something. I just pretended like it was something we covered last time. They don't cover the labor, which is $45. The tax and the tire.
No, that's awesome. Good.
There was one, the front was replaced.
Okay.
Alright, so give her like 10 more minutes.
Okay.
We'll be ready.
Okay.
Got the paperwork, but like 10 minutes she'll have the keys and everything.
Yes, sir.
Alright, thanks.
Thank you. All right. We got some great news. I might have to got some great news. Got some great news. Okay. Praise God. Hallelujah. All right. So we're probably gonna have to do a brief intermission in a little bit. So give me like somebody hold me accountable. What time is it now? I got 9:23. Does that sound right to y'all? I got like 9:23 over here. That's well. So let's say somebody make sure that I'm finished, not finished, but let's say 9:35 ish or 35, whatever time you have. How you doing, Big Brother Thomas? Love you. Let's say somebody hold me accountable, like the latest I can be off is 35ish. I'll go inside. I'll try to transition everything into the vehicle, and then I guess I have to find a place to park, and we'll finish up for the last 45 minutes or so. All right. 9:35. Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank y'all, family. All right. So just hold me accountable. All righty. 6:23. Oh, okay. Are you on with us on a regular basis, Peaches? I think so. I'm having an issue with the name. If so, we need to get your info at some point. We're gonna be coming over next year over your way, so we make sure we send you the stuff. Or if, or maybe even Dr. T if you're on, or somebody over there, and try to see if you can reach out to her or whatever, or somebody can reach out to her. And we're gonna be coming over to the West Coast somewhat early next year. So if you're on with us regular, something like that, make sure that you if somebody can help me out for today, especially because I'm running all over the place. But anyways, let me hurry up before we take our intermission. I'll try to do a 10-minute intermission. So somebody hold me accountable, 35 or so. Somebody start posting it up on the screen, and it will take about 10 minutes. If everything they're saying is correct in about 10 minutes, then or 35, I should be able to go in, give whatever we need to give, get the stuff out here, transition everything into the car, park somewhere where we can continue, and then we'll finish it up. Or maybe stand somewhere where we can continue. We'll see. Anyways, let's see. Be enough time for me to warm my hands up, boy. Alrighty. So Rosa Parks and all that stuff. So you'll see that this stuff has even changed. And so churches are not going to represent that properly. Teaching's not going to represent that properly. Preaching's not going to represent that properly. We're going to have a lot of persons that are going to say, you don't even need to talk about that, right? But it was somebody being heavily against racism, white supremacy, race and Garveyism, talking about Israel, talking about us being a nation, and ensuring that we were going to properly do so, and even to the place of defending ourselves. That was what made her say enough is enough. It wasn't, a peaceful protest because we shouldn't be worried about all this stuff. No, it was straight up enough is enough, right? Like, she was taught this from an early age, from when she was a little girl. We're not supposed to do, there's certain things we're just not going to do, right? And then it was taken, and it was co-opted so much so, if you guys recall what happened, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and them, and I'm not speaking ill of him, I'm just telling you a truth, a fact, right? A contextual fact. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and company then used this and leveraged this, if you will, to say, okay, we're going to take this and we're going to utilize this and we're going to use this to go ahead and, what's the word I'm looking for? Forgive me. We're going to leverage it. We're going to use it, and we're going to help with the bus boycott. And persons got all in, to the point to where persons would walk to work miles and miles and miles, and they would take off their shoes and walk barefoot for miles and miles and miles, due to the fact that they wanted to ensure that they preserved maybe their only nice shoes they had for work or whatever, right? And all this stuff happens, and then after the bus boycott is over, iconoclasm. You've been taught that everything just went back to normal, everything was straight. Praise Yah. We didn't have to worry about this, that, etc. the third. The problem with that outlook, though, is that you can find paperwork that the SCLC had to put out after that, and had to put out and say, and send to everybody and say, hey, when you get on the buses, you're probably still going to be told to sit in the back. You're probably, and don't argue with them, and don't do that, don't fuss. Why? Why were you told those things? Right? Because they were like, it didn't change. It's nice that we got the publicity out of it, but it didn't change, And so even with that, you had to cover what actually happened, which is basically the only thing that really happened was that now black businesses, black buses, black cabs, black trains, all that stuff, it went away because the white man's ice stays colder. And we started riding their stuff. And the reality was just because you couldn't sit in front of their buses, you can get on your buses. Just because you can get in their cabs didn't mean you couldn't get in your cabs. Just because you couldn't get on their trains didn't mean you couldn't get on your trains. Your grandmother was first black female bus driver after the boycott? Yeah. So you could have easily stayed with what you had, but the goal was to make sure you could prove to them that you could play in their league when you had your own. Negro leagues, major leagues. Right? And a lot of this is the same thing as far as the religiosity that we still are dealing with today, where you'll have somebody who's so busy saying, be in our church versus being in your assembly. Follow our version of Jesus versus the true Yahshua, right? Like, this is the same outcome because it's the same system. And nobody wants to look at it that way. We're supposed to just go, man, MLK, he did his thing, it's over. But that's not how that works, beloved. It's not. Right? We're just supposed to go, MLK, he did his thing, y'all. And that was it. But that's not even how it worked. That's why after even he gives the famous, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last. That's great, but that's not the end. Right? Remember is it 1965? He's still doing the interview, and he's told, by the interviewer, why are you guys always doing this? Other persons have just pulled themselves up by their own bootstraps. What's wrong with you? And he says, and during the interview, it's a terrible thing to say to a man, right? To pull himself up by his own bootstraps when he has no boots. Right? 1968, he's still speaking on now just straight up revolutionary. He doesn't sound even close to the same MLK he was. He's not biting his tongue. He's going back to what he believed. And I was saying this before, even when he came into what was there, he was not nonviolent. But in order to get the job, he became nonviolent to represent the organization. Right? And then he went and started studying Gandhi, somebody who was even against us, but we didn't even know at the time. A lot of us didn't know at the time because they had cleaned that up, that Gandhi actually was basically into racism, white supremacy. He wouldn't call it that because he's an Indian, right? But He was into racism, white supremacy. He hated black folk. Wanted us off in the street. And so we got bad intel because we had bad information, or we didn't study properly, or we got something that was smoothed over. You see, so when coming into truth, and here's a little situation for you. We're often taught when somebody is going to free black people. This is what we're taught. When somebody wants to free black people, that's when they get off. But I don't think we actually think about the fact that when somebody uses the word of Yah to free black people, that's when they lose their lives. You ever thought about that? And I never really thought about that. That's Holy Ghost led. I don't think I've ever said that before. Right? But you think about that. That's we often just go, oh yeah. And I'm not saying there's no black people, but look, you got to realize when somebody uses religion and says this is a reason why we should stop racism, white supremacy, everybody loses their mind. Everybody got a problem with saying that a higher power doesn't think that we should be doing this one to another or to a human being. Brother Clem, is that the same Brother Clem? If it is, welcome. It's been a minute. Right? Yeah, exactly, because it leads you to who you are. Come on, Sister Shin. Yeah. Amen, Sister Iska. You got to realize, oh, wow. Well, welcome back, sir. Hopefully all is well in the transition with the family and all that. All right? Praying for you, been praying for you. Been letting you do what you need to do, praise y'all. All right? But you hear what I'm saying? Like, this is something that's real. Is that if you, and even watch this is why we said you got to be careful about just thinking it's white persons only, so-called white persons only. When it comes to racism, white supremacy, real talk, when it comes to racism, white supremacy, you have to realize that it's not just white persons who are in on it. There's black persons who are in on it, and they get their money from it. Now, somebody doesn't like this, but we're going to use the Bible. And we haven't brought this verse up in a while concerning this, but it's the truth. Revelation chapter 2. Now, we know verse 9. Everybody likes verse 9, where, there are those that say that they are Israel and are not, and are the synagogue of the Satan. Right? That's true. And we like to skip over to Revelation 3:9, which tells us the same thing, and then tells us that person's going to sit at our feet and he's going to show the world that he's always loved us. But don't forget Revelation 2:14 and 15, which talks about being against Nicolaitan doctrine in verse 15, which is when you have persons who conquer you as lay people in the assembly, right? You go to your church and you're the lay person, you're in the assembly, you sit down, they up on the stage. But then verse 14, it talks about Balaam doctrine. What is Balaam doctrine, beloved? Come on now, verse 14, Revelation 2:14 tells about Balaam doctrine. When you read Numbers 22, 23, and 24, we actually have some stuff on the channel, YouTube channel about it if you'd like to look it up. Balaam doctrine is dangerous because Balaam was a prophet of the Most High. In fact, the prophet had the calling and everything, not even going against if these persons are called. You can have the calling and everything, but here's the problem with Balaam doctrine. Revelation chapter 2 and verse 14 tells you that Balaam was one who was in fact hired by Balak to try and be a stumbling stone, or create a stumbling stone even, for Israel. He was paid in gold. And so he told them at first, he was like, that's not how this works. The only reason why would I work, because they knew whatever he said had to happen. But he said, it doesn't happen just because I come up with whatever. He was like, Yah tells me what to say, and I just say what he says. And therefore, whatever he says comes and happens because of who I serve. How you doing, Eddie? This is what he tells them. And they're like, no. And then they get mad at him a couple times because so he actually starts trying to get over to them. And on the way over, he's trying his best to figure out, how can I serve Yah, get his word, and at the same time get their money? And eventually there has to be a very miraculous thing that happens with the donkey speaking and all types of stuff before he finally sees an angel that was there to take his life, because had he gone any further. And then he says, okay, I won't do it. But you have to recognize and realize that there's persons that still do that are paid. They're paid. Right? And you got to Get this out your head, because see, this is why this has to become a culture and a lifestyle. We be thinking preaching just means on Sunday in church, or preaching just means what Pastor Kofi's doing today, or what Minister Nice will do tomorrow, or what, you know. And I'm not saying they're going tomorrow. I'm just giving you examples, right? Or what Minister Stephen would do 5 days from now, what Minister Morel would do 20 days from now, something like that. No. Like preaching is proclaiming, and so you can preach. It's time. Thank you. Okay, so you can preach to an assembly as far as Republican Party. You can preach to an assembly as far as the Democratic Party. You can preach to your corporation. You hear me, beloved? You can preach to all of them. You don't have to be in a church. So that's why we're saying this is religion, and it seeps into religion. And we used to know that you had to live your life holy all the time, because your life should preach and speak to you no matter what. Right, you can preach to the trees. Come on, I used to do that all the time. Anyways, though, let me be faithful. Thank you, Sister Donna, and thank you for those who are looking out for me. I'm going to go ahead and go inside. So let's take hopefully no more than a 10-minute intermission. You know, prayerfully I'll be back in about 10 minutes or so. So if you want to go grab something, or, you know, do what you got to do, getting ready or whatever. Thank you for being on with us. I'll try to, you know, this will just kind of sort of be on silence. I'll try to mute everything for you guys, so you guys don't have to hear a bunch of stuff going on around you. But prayerfully, I'll be back in about 10 minutes or so, or at least you'll see me starting to pick this stuff up in about 10 minutes or so. And we'll try to continue where we left off. Those on the podcast, thank you for being on with us, and we'll see you next time. All right. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you in a little bit. It's about the best I can do. Can y'all still hear me? Or can you hear me again? If you've been waiting, thank you for waiting. It took a little longer than expected. You guys hear me all right? Yes. Cool. Can you hear me on all the platforms? Amen. Alrighty. Cool. So I do not recall where I was left off at. I know we were talking about Rosa Parks and some other things. And we were talking about iconoclasm. All right. Thank you, Brother Aaron. So we're so there's a lot of different ways that we can look at this stuff as far as religion and racism, white supremacy, and how racism, white supremacy has affected and still does affect a lot of stuff that we are doing as far as worship and even culturally. And I apologize. I got you guys here, but hopefully this will work at least for the rest of the live session. But yeah, so we can see very clearly that there's a lot of stuff that affects what we're going through. Balaam and Balak, thank you, Minister Shante, thank you, moderators. So we can see in a lot of different ways, a lot of different facets, how stuff is still affected spiritually. Remember we talked about yesterday, even when we're talking about racism, white supremacy, we're not just looking at it from the flesh. Even last night, we were talking about Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 through 13, and how we were speaking on verse 12 or verse 10, how we're putting this armor on to go against the wiles or the cunning or the nature or the methods or even the system, if you will, of the devil. And verse 11 comes behind it and says, therefore, make sure that you put on the full armor. When you put on this full armor, you're putting it on not to fight against flesh and blood. And that in and of itself spiritually should really speak volumes to us. We're not putting on the full armor to go against flesh and blood. So the whole thing about fighting us in our flesh or fighting what our flesh looks like, right, is not the entirety of the situation. Thank you, Sister Iska. I see you. So putting this, that's not the entirety of the situation. That's not what we're looking at only. That's something that somebody wants you to focus in. And that's one of the dangers of racism, white supremacy as well, is that the focus has been taken off the spirit and has been put on the flesh. Now, I'm not here, as you guys probably can tell, especially if you've been with us through this whole series, how you know, Minister Tamara, as you guys can probably can tell, I'm not here to tell you we're therefore going to act like, we don't see color and blah, blah. We went over that yesterday. What we're here to say, though, is that if you're dealing with racism, white supremacy, the goal is to get you to be off the spirit and believe that your armor goes to flesh and blood. That's one of the biggest pieces of this. One of the most untold parts of this saga is we wrestle not against flesh and blood. But if we set up a system of racism, white supremacy, then what are we wrestling against? One of the reasons you have to come out the system of racism, white supremacy is your armor doesn't work in racism, white supremacy, because your armor based upon color of the flesh ain't gonna get you but so far. It'll give you a fact, but remember, our goal is not to have fact without context. We want a contextual fact or a bunch of contextual facts that get us to a place in which we now can honor Yahweh's word and his will for us, which is for us to be spirit beings. So if anybody can use a system, including if you're trying to come out the system to now be anti-white, so-called anti-white, then you're still in a bad position because you're still not honoring the fact that this fight goes beyond what you see. How you doing, Coach? You said calm principalities and powers and rulers high in dark places, right? That's where we wrestle. And so they try, the darkness of the system was to try to get you to believe that you should wrestle against what they call darkness in your skin. That's ultimately how cunning this is that really the system is designed where persons are telling a part of the truth. Not the whole thing, but they're telling a part of the truth to where, hey, if you focus on this, isn't it supposed to be on spiritual matters? Right? This is the cloud. Part of this design of the system is to cloud your judgment. Bars, praise God, right? But part of it is to cloud your judgment, is to get you in a place to where you're more focused on what? On race. Even if you're saying, I'm focused on the fact you're focused on race, we have become hyper focused on it, because it's like, for example, we got to talk about sexuality and we got to talk about men versus women. All this, why? Because that's become the focus of the system. So in this type of situation, you're going to hear me talk a lot about it, because we're teaching and we're trying to extend an olive branch or be a bridge to those remnant that are out there that still are going to become Israel, or be Israel, or become Israel again. That being said, though, I don't walk around all day worried about it, as much as I'll say, yeah, I see it everywhere I go, but I don't, it's not something that drives me, so to speak. And this is one of the things that the United, this book we've been using to be the foundation of this series, the United Independent Compensatory Code/System/Concept by Neely Fuller Jr. This is why we're using this as code. But the goal is, remember, part of his goal or his ultimate goal with the book is not to use the code to just say y'all, everybody racist, but part of the goal is to come out the system. If we're going to come out the system, we must be systematic or purposeful, if you will, in our approach. Our goal is to systematically ensure that we're not dealing with this stuff. Right? We're going to put something in place, a safe place even, a haven from the heathens. Or any kind of heathenistic teaching. That's a goal, right? That's a huge goal of ours, right? If you're going to partake in what we're doing, by the way, if that's not a goal of yours, you might want to go ahead and do something else. But a huge goal of ours is to ensure that our people, right, will have a safe place from having to deal with racism. That means this is why this stuff goes together. Remember, there's the 9 areas, right, that we're dealing with in human activity that affect all humans in the known universe. And so when using that approach and using that thought process, it must occur to us that you have to set up a system that allows persons to be safe from always dealing in that. My goal is not to just say, hey, we're just going to call everybody. So we have to make that very clear. The goal of this series, right? The intent of the series, the goal of the book, the intent of the author, right? The goal of this series has not been to say we're just going to talk about racism. The goal of this series is to ensure that we're dealing in making sure that we are not creating an environment that just simply is another so-called evolution of racism, white supremacy. Hello, John. How you doing? If you had literally been on here earlier, you would have seen me at the dealership. You're a day late and $1 short, right? Get yourself together, though. You're trolling is better than most, right? But get yourself together, right? Look at this, right? Look at this. That in of itself should tell you that you need to be quiet about that, right? Right? I don't got all the money in the world, but Yah has blessed us. And if that's the only thing you got, that in of itself is racism, white supremacy. I see a guy in here. I see a guy in a car. I see him on a live session. Therefore, he must be poor. It is what it is. Thank you, moderators. Thank you, Sister Renee. Right, and welcome, Sister Renee. Sorry, I didn't say shalom to you earlier. Peace. But yeah, the goal is to make sure that we set up a system separated from racism, white supremacy. Right? This is a bridge. It's a tool that we're using, but the goal is not for us to be great here. This is why we say this is not just virtual, it's reality. The goal is not for us to have a religion of just coming on the live session and that's it. The goal is at some point to use the live session to continue to influence the lives of others, that we might come into agreement on what Yah's will is, and that we actually produce stronger families and stronger businesses. By the way, even in our business dealings, and Sister Renee, I apologize. I meant to actually put this on the list of things that I sent you. I was kind of in a rush yesterday. I know I was behind. I was supposed to have emailed you, and I kind of been we dealing with some personal stuff, including all the stuff I was dealing with today. But even in our businesses, right? We're going to have to actually do, and I guess we'll invite everybody on, but eventually it'll just be something that becomes part of the teaching for SOC University. But we'll allow at least some of the beginning teachings for you guys to come on, because even in our business dealings, be ready to come up in your business dealings. I said we're talking about religion, and I know we're using the United Independent Compensatory Code /system/concept. However, we always know that we have a code called the kingdom. And so we are making sure that we make both very clear and walk and see how it walks with the kingdom. You said you had an opportunity to teach an Arabian and an atheist. You were surprised at how much they received. Praise God, right? And so when we're talking about this in religion, remember, religion is what a legion of people repetitively do. So even when it comes to our business dealings, I want to tell y'all this: be ready to step your game up, right? Expect the blessing. Hashtag finish strong and hashtag expect the blessing. Before, right? We're gonna create a hashtag. We're gonna create hashtag a safe place, but don't forget that expect what's about to happen. Until you lost a brother from another mother on Saturday. He was the father of 6 children and 2 stepchildren. Oh wow, sorry, brother Craig. Yeah, we'll definitely be praying about that. And if anything we can do, we'll try to help out with, or anything the family might, need, or even if it's a kind word or something, we'll try to see what we can do. Also, don't forget about Big Brother Thomas and them. The viewing for his father is going to be on Friday, and the actual funeral is going to be at noon Eastern time on Saturday. So we're going to try to make sure. Matter of fact, if somebody can hold me accountable, maybe Sister Renee or somebody else hold me accountable. We need to make sure, even if somebody else can do it, somebody make sure that you hold us accountable, even if you do it, and then we reimburse you. Depending, well, you need to talk to us about before you send what you're gonna send, and we're gonna reimburse. But if somebody can hold me accountable, we want to make sure we send something out to Brother Thomas and his family. I'm on bare minimum. And for those who are in Detroit or close enough to Detroit or whatever, if you like, well, I don't know. He gave out the information for the thing. I don't know if he said everybody can attend, but he gave out the information. So I'll check with them, I guess, if he says it's okay if we come and support or whatever. But we're going to try to send something. If you'd like to send something to the family as well or something, we'll make sure. But we're going to send something as SOC, and we're going to send something as our personal family too. So if somebody can just hold me accountable to that, I need to make sure. I mean, really, for real, it need to be sent today, or at least paid for it to be sent today. So somebody can hold us accountable to that, so we can make sure that we get that done. Because I'd be forgetting, it's Christmas, so everything about to shut down at least for a couple of days. But yeah, we'll be praying for you. Um, but yeah, so we want to ensure that in our businesses, even, because this for us is so-called religion, right? It's what we repetitively do. So if we're going to support each other, we're going to sow into each other, and we're going to love on each other, and we're going to operate on a different level. We have to make sure. I want you guys to make sure, even in your business dealings, right? Let them be holy. That means if somebody's going to get a product from you, be ready. Also, too, we're going to have some business teachings too, because be ready for persons to give. That means you got to receive. Right? I'm not great with technology myself, so I had to learn. Okay, there's something called Zelle, PayPal, Cash App. You know, um, be willing to take a check here or there. Especially we talking about holiness within our culture. So at least nobody within this group should ever be sending anything unless it's valid, right? Look for Venmo. Look for I don't know how much Square is still a thing, but look for different ways that you can be able to receive. Look at receiving through social media. If you're somebody that's putting your stuff up on TikTok or Facebook or etc., look at being able to receive through it. If you're going to do something on YouTube and you get to a certain level on YouTube, be ready to receive stuff through AdSense if that's what you choose, how you choose to get paid. I don't, because it means that somebody has control over your context, but over your context ultimately, because you're not allowed to do certain things depending on what the persons who do commercials want to be known. That being said, though, you have it, make sure you start looking at stuff for your business, right? That's part of what we would do, because part of our religiosity, so to speak, is business. And it's interesting because in churches, it's kind of looked down upon. Now, I see why, because of what we do with the finances we get, but it shouldn't be looked down upon in camps and churches, whatever. We shouldn't look down upon persons who actually say that we should make sure that we have finances, that we have food, that we have shelter. You know, we might not be able to do shelter this year, but down the road at some point this year, we're going to focus, 2025, we're going to focus more on the land. And as we focus more on that, the goal ultimately is going to be to have a place of refuge, right? To make it in the name of Yahweh and allow it to be a strong tower where the righteous can run in and they can be safe, right? Like, start thinking about these things in your personal walk, in your personal life, including with your business, right? Your business is Yah's business. And if you were to step into, think about it this way, if you were to go into a store and it was Yah's store, what would that look like? Some of your imaginations are running, aren't they? Right? If you were to run into Yah's store, what would it look like? Would it be clean? Would he be able to accept your donation or your offering, your seed? It'd be endless, right? Would he work with you from time to time, while at the same time knowing that you're going to give the best that you can, and as long as you give the best you can, that he'll give you the best that he can, not according to the person who's the customer's measure, but his measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. Would he make sure that everybody would be covered in some way, shape, or form, as far as what he can give out? Would it be one size fits all, or would he love you all where you are, including your shapes or what your eating habits are, et cetera, et cetera? You see what I'm saying? And so we want to do this all in honor of him. And there's nothing wrong with making sure that we do what the word says, which is to make sure that we do business amongst each other correctly. Right? That we do business amongst each other correctly. You know? And so we should be thinking about that. That's part of our religion. Right? One of the things, and I bring it up because racism, white supremacy teaches you to be in a place to where a lot of you believe, and I believed this myself for a long time, that you're supposed to be pious. You're supposed to be broke. And the broker you are, the more blessed you are. And I'm not here to teach what's called prosperity, because prosperity technically means your ability to push through something. Right? So if you're prosperous, you can be prosperous. Like, I was prosperous when I was homeless on the street, but I never missed a meal. And I didn't look like I was homeless on the street outside the first couple of days that I got out of prison, to be honest. Right? I didn't have no clothes, and I had what they took me in, and it was all jacked up holes in them and all this stuff like that. Right? But, we're talking about being prosperous, pushing through. And don't forget, Israel is a kingdom. What's another word for kingdom that starts with a C? If we are a kingdom, religiously even, we have a religion. As a kingdom, what's another word for a kingdom that starts with a C? Right? What's another word, right? What's another word for kingdom that starts with a C? Community, okay. Cosmos, that's a system. That's a physical system, right? Another word I'm looking for. Come on, Brother TJ, I see you. A commonwealth. Now, cosmos, that means system, starts with a K, by the way, right? A commonwealth. In a kingdom, the wealth is common. So you're not a commoner, but you have commonwealth. This is why we have false commonwealths. Virginia's a commonwealth. Look at how Virginia treats its subjects, though. The subjects of the queen, now the king, right? I believe Pennsylvania's a commonwealth. Look at how Pennsylvania treats its commoners, though. Or the wealth that should be common. All right. So you have to realize, in a kingdom there's commonwealth. That's why the Bible says what? Such as I have. Finish that for me, y'all. I know we got some Bible scholars in the house. Such as I have, I what? Finish that. Such as I have. What's the rest of that? I know somebody knows the scripture. Come on now, don't leave your boy hanging. Such as I have, That's right. I give unto thee. Freely give, right? If I have it, why? Because it's commonwealth, right? If I've been blessed, no problem. Such as I have, right? Now, such as I have within context. Okay, right? If I have something and my baby needs to eat, my baby needs to eat first. Okay, but such as I have, it's common unto the royalty within my community, within the kingdom. Come on, somebody. This is religion, but you've been taught that you should have nothing. And if you're taught you should have nothing, then everybody should have nothing again. Anybody that gets something now is somebody that we look at, right? You look at the curse, Deuteronomy 28, verse 54. You look at the bosom, or I'm sorry, you look at your brother and you're mad that he has it, and now you take it out on the wife of your bosom, and now your children suffer. That's cursed behavior. That's cursed teaching. You said, well, I believe in a creator theory. Do you have scientific evidence to support this? Do you have scientific evidence to support? Yeah, actually I do. If I want to talk about Yahweh, Yahweh, do you know what that is? 10, 5, 6, 5. Look at DNA, right? That's the name of the Most High, right? I can continue to go forth and forth and forth, right? The Bible talks about how the earth is created and literally how islands came up and out of volcanoes, right? I can continue to talk about that it had to be gas, liquid, solid. We know that's how stuff comes forth. I mean, we can continue to go on and on, right? But if you're talking about a theory and you're going to call a creator theory, let me just say this and then I'm going to get back to the point that I'm on, right? But because even if you're talking about evolution, why don't you talk about evolution? We talked about this earlier, so you were a day late and a dollar short on this, but let me help you out because we're talking about racism, white supremacy. Evolution that you talk about, especially coming from the prism of Darwin, is what's the name of Darwin's book written in 1859, right? The Theory of Evolution. The Theory of Evolution. The Origin of Species, the Theory of Evolution, by means of natural selection or the survival of favored races in the struggle for life. And his doctrine is Linnaean. It's a theory based off of racism, saying that certain groups of people came from certain animals and they should be fought. We should make sure that we fight for their right to survive rather than others. Right? So if you're going to talk about theories, make sure that you talk about the racism, white supremacy, and the theory that you're here to uphold, before you start talking about the creation one. And why would you want to be part of a theory unless you believe that it's scientific to uphold somebody that wasn't even a scientist and his only degree is in theology, meaning that his racism that he spit was what he preached. And you're in his, right? But you don't mind supporting him in the pulpit. Right? But once again, when we talk about racism, white supremacy, persons will say and argue these things. You said, did I see Darwin's study of birds whose beaks match the types of foods that they eat? I saw the theory of that. But just because there's birds that eat things that their beaks can reach, that's like saying, I saw a bunch of human beings outside, and I saw that taller human beings were able to reach and get things that shorter human beings couldn't reach, and therefore the taller human beings evolved to be able to reach the food that other human beings couldn't reach. It's a theory. It's not the fact of racism. I'm sorry, it's not the fact of that. You said, do I believe God? I don't believe in God. God is a different culture. God is a Germanic word that means you can worship whatever you want to worship. Once again, you're in the wrong place. You have theories and you're assuming that I'm a Christian, and you're assuming that my belief system has to fall into a Eurocentric view concerning empirical data, that the empirical data can be used to formulate whatever opinion that it is. You're here opining, but you can't give me the actual fact. You can't give me the truth. You can't tell me, watch this. I'm going to see racism, white supremacy says I got to squash this or I got to come from a different place or whatever. Watch this. You can't tell me through the prism of whatever it is that you say you believe in, right? In science, right? Okay. Scientists will tell you and admit to you that you can't tell if somebody's a male or a female based off of bone structure, other than maybe the fact that the bones might be a little wider at the hip, but you can't tell. But you make educated guesses on who's male and who's female, right? Science tells you that nobody really knows the age of the universe, including the Bible says that nobody really knows the age of the universe, because a day is not, that you change into English where you go off of, a day means a period of time. So who knows how long the first period of time was, the second period of time was, the third age, the fourth age, the fifth age, the sixth age, etc. Who knows, right? The Bible agrees with Pangea if you know how to read it correctly. You go back to the original language and even the names that are used to name persons when they were born, right? But these are things that you have no clue. So you're making theories that are illogical. You said who created Elohim? Nobody, right? Say it like this. Watch this. Scientists believe in like a matrix type theory, or possibly there could be a theory that says that we live in somebody else's computer, right? Well, if somebody creates a computer, right, they don't need to be in the computer. They created it, right? If we believe, let's go off of a God theory. You ready for this? And then I'm gonna leave this alone because I got other places to be, other things to do that are more relevant than somebody who hasn't been listening to the whole time we've been on and is catching on to a series that's 11 parts long and is trying to argue something that they obviously haven't studied, and you're talking about something that's not even my belief system. But that being said, right? If there's a theory, a God theory, as you say, I don't worship God, I worship Elohim. It's a different thing entirely. But that being said, the so-called God theory, Germanic Visigothic way of looking at God, right? In the so-called God theory, if you're talking about this thing of, I'm gonna say the higher power, right? Because I don't believe in God. So the one who I believe created the universe, who you say is theoretical and something completely man-made and fictionalized. If I'm gonna be in this system or in that theory that you're talking about, then I believe that the Most High, or so-called God, is greater than what he created, right? I believe that the person who created the computer is greater than the computer. Okay, Jimmy, hear me out. You asked the question. This is the platform I'm on, and if you'd like to hear the answer, you can. If not, then it just seems like you're asking questions for the sake of question. You can actually chill out long enough to listen, though. Thank you, moderators. Right? Trying to be nice, and your whole goal is just right, which shows me that you're somebody who's about more ad hominem, and you don't even realize that your ad hominem is so crazy that you're not even able to see that you might have Dunning-Kruger effect. So allow me to retort. All right. So if there's the so-called creator theory, whoever creates the computer is greater than the computer. The computer shows signs of the greatness of the creator. The computer can be used by the creator. The computer can give evidence of a creator. The computer sometimes, if not necessarily, especially with AI and stuff now, if somebody looks at a computer without study and not knowing the context of how the computer got here, might think that the AI or the computer within itself doesn't need a creator. But its intelligence is only on the level of what was fed by the creator. The chips that are used in the computer are only there. So our creator of Earth, of the universe, right? Because by the way, the word universe, universe, means uni, uno, one, and verse, a sentence, which means the universe is literally a single spoken sentence. You can change it to whatever you like, but that's what it originally means. I'm always about the origin of words in etymology, right? Because even in your science, you should always make sure you know what the words you're using mean, correct? So if you're talking about the origin of the creator, even in your so-called theory, the creator would have to be greater than what he created. So if there's three things, let's just box it into three things, and then I'm gonna move on. If there's something called time, if there's something called space, and if there's something called matter, then the creator is not bound in time and in space and in matter, because he created it. So in order for you to think of the creator of time, you have to think outside of time. So if you're only thinking how long did something exist, you've already messed up, because according to your theory, I would have to believe that the creator is greater than time if he created it. By the way, according to the creator theory that is a biblical creator theory, right? If we're going to go to that type of creator theory instead of you just trying to change the argument, then what I believe in and what the Bible says and teaches and what the scrolls teach is that the creator himself created time as a way of being able to see where you were in eternity, meaning that the creator is in eternity and that you are in eternity, but the sun, the moon, the stars were created in the fourth period of time, or what you call day 4, was created specifically to say where we are in eternity, meaning that the creator is focused on eternity, but he created time so you could tell where you are. Just like when the Bible was originally written, there were no chapters and verses, but somebody added chapters and verses to tell you where you are. But the book of Ephesians, we just read Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 through 13 last night. Ephesians 6, 10 through 13 has nothing to do with the entirety of Ephesians, or it does, I won't say nothing, but it was created within the entirety of Ephesians. If you only focus on verses 10 through 13, you miss the complex nature of the entire or whole or holistic properties or the holy properties of that letter. So same thing. If you're dealing with the creator in a creator theory and you're only thinking about time, you've already messed up, because the creator exists in time because time exists in eternity. He made something to tell you where you were in eternity. That's called time. So if your only focus is to say, I don't believe in a creator until I can figure out the time that the creator existed, then you have a problem, because the creator of time created time because he's eternal, but he needed you, who's just now catching up to what eternity could possibly look like on the fringes of it. He's trying to show you that there's a deeper level than your surface level comprehension of eternity. But hey, if you need time to help you to comprehend eternity, that's for you, right? Not only that though, then there's time, there's space. The creator is greater than space. He made a space. The Bible declares, once again, if you're talking about a theory, you got to have your theory correct as far as where you're getting your so-called facts from. That's not even a fact the way you're approaching it. The theory, right, if it's talking about the creator I serve. Now, if you're talking about whatever you want to make up, so be it. But if you're talking about the creator that I serve, this creator, and it's written, right, he is so vast that the heavens, the right, space is his throne, and the earth is his footstool. He's bigger than what he created, right? He created time, but time serves you to help you to see who he is in eternity, because he's bigger than time, right? He created space and earth, but space and earth serve him, but he created it to expand his kingdom while allowing you to have a place to be able to serve and learn what it is to be a Lord under the Lord. That's why he's the Lord of Lords. He's the King of Kings, so that you might be able to somewhat start to have a comprehension of who he actually is, right? But at the same time, realize that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, they and them that dwell therein. And then the last one, you have time, you have space, but he's also bigger than matter. This is why he says focus on the spirit, because the spirit is really bigger than, right? All the stuff that you think matters, it doesn't matter. The spirit is what matters. The spirit is what allows him. He, as a spirit, spoke matter into existence. You're stuck on a theory that says that matter cannot be created, right? It can only turn into energy, and energy can't be created. It can only turn into matter or come from matter. They can't go away, which is a lie, because even neutrons is a theory, right? A neutrino, a neutron, all of that is a theory. Nobody has ever seen a neutron, right? Nobody's ever seen a neutron because it doesn't exist. It's theoretical. The only reason there's a such thing as a neutron is because they used to teach that energy has to go away, right? Or energy can't go away. It can't disappear, right? Energy has to turn into matter. Matter has to turn into energy. Right? E equals MC squared, even though that's not a perfect representation, but basically mass has turned to energy, energy has turned to mass. They can't just go anywhere. Problem with this is though, they started doing something making something called an atomic bomb, right? Or maybe it wasn't called an atomic bomb yet, that they started making bombs that were based off of what? They were based off of electrons and protons. And when they started exploding these electrons and protons, funny thing happened. The mass, right, of this atom, when it exploded, they could not find it anymore. They didn't find any energy from the mass. The energy of the explosion didn't create mass called protons and electrons. They were dumbfounded. What do we do? What do we say? We've been teaching persons all the time that energy has to turn into mass, mass has to turn into energy. There's no proof of it. So what happens is you have a group of 5 young scientists, if we want to call them that, let's put respect in their titles, from ages 15 to like age 25, and they come together and they come up with a theory called neutrons. And it basically goes like this. Well, if we can't find positive energy in the protons that we exploded, and we can't find the negative energy in the electrons, we can't find the negative energy of the electrons turning to protons, then what do? We say, okay, well, we'll just say that they go to a neutral space. There must be something called a neutron. And they've tried to prove it over years. They can't find any proof of it. And when they find, what they find is more and more evidence that what they think are even called neutrinos are not even necessarily neutrinos. Right? Now watch this. What if Yahweh can move in time? What if the Most High, what if the Creator that I serve can move faster in time? All those things being said in science, and then I'm going to leave it alone. But what if who I serve is faster than what he created? Right? What about something called tachyons? I had a whole person who argued me under the table about tachyons because he didn't comprehend the science of them. What about tachyons? You know there is a such thing as tachyons. Tachyons are things that are believed scientifically to move faster than the speed of light. Now, I call it tachyon because even that comes out of a theory, but it's something that moves faster than the speed of light. And if you can move faster than the speed of light, then it means that you move faster than time. And we know how time works, right? If the closer I get to the speed of light, supposedly everything goes slower for me. So if, let's say I was going really, really close to the speed of light, 95% the speed, to the speed, as far as from where we are to the speed of light, it means that I could go from Mars and back, and what would be like a little bit of time to me is a whole bunch of time to you. But if one can go at the speed of light, supposedly everything stands still. Now here goes the theory, according to your science. Here's the next part of the theory. You ready? According to your science, let's say that I can actually reverse it. So the way we look at it in our human form, this is science. This is scientific theory. The way we look at it within our human form is I can only imagine going from how fast I am or where I am to the speed of light, right? From where time is to the speed of light. That's all I can think of is relatively from where I am to the speed of light. If I get to the speed of light, what if time stands still? But then there's another theory that says, well, wait a minute. What if I can actually look at it the other way? The speed of light is what I look at trying to go to, but what if I can go faster than the speed of light to slowing down to the speed of light? We found that this can be done, by the way, through persons trying to find neutrinos, if you know what I'm even talking about. So, therefore, there's evidence that there's something that moves faster than the speed of light. There's also evidence that things can be put into place to slow something down that goes faster than the speed of light. Which means that if the one who created time not only created things like you call the speed of light, but created things that go faster than the speed of light, and we know that these things can actually be slowed down to where we can measure their time slower than the speed of light, then this also means that the one who created it has the ability to go faster than time, go slower than time. And if he's going slower, if he can reverse how fast he's going, where he's literally going faster than what you can measure, he's actually going faster than what you can see. He's actually speeding up to where he's going, relatively speaking, he's actually going to another time. Then it means that same person can slow down to go past what you know and has the ability to be able to slow down past what you call time, which means he can go into the future, he can come back to your present, he can go into your past, he can go back to your present, he can go back into your future. That's according to your scientific theory, if you even know that. So when you bring up science to me, you're coming to the wrong person. I believe you thought you were going to show up and tell me something that I'm not prepared for, or just be like, hey, if there's a God there, but if there's a creator theory, which is a better way of saying it, right? That's what you actually said, to give you credit. You said that at first. If there's a creator theory, the one who created time is the one who created time. If he created time that slows down and speeds up, it means he can slow down and speed up. He created out of what he could do. You don't create out of something you cannot do. The person who does heart surgery or creates heart surgery, so to speak, is the person who actually knows what it is and has practiced on hearts and stuff. He doesn't just go in and just do heart surgery or just touch a person's chest and their heart goes into place. He has to be able to do what it is that now you are coming into what you're aware of. Right? So when somebody says the creator theory, then yeah, if he creates time, space, and matter, he has to be greater than time, right? He has to be greater than space, and he has to be greater than matter. Salah. Right? Has to be. You can try and dress it up however you want. He has to be. right? He has to be. If he's not, then he's not who he says he is. Straight up. That's right. That's kingdom sense, not common sense. So Yah is greater than space, time, and matter. If he creates it, he's got to be greater than what he created. Right? That's just the way it is. If he created time, then he's slower, faster, and in the present. Tachyon particles, slower than the speed of light, faster than the speed of light. He has to be all. Right? But in racism, white supremacy, you're supposed to even determine who the Most High is or say what he can be by limiting him. Right? Because you have to limit him in order to limit his people. You have to limit him in order to limit his people. You have to limit his throne. You have to limit his power. You have to limit what he says. You said, what is time? When it says in beginning, who's beginning? Exactly. In beginning, so it actually would say, Barashat bara Elacham achamiyam arat, or in beginning Elacham created heaven, not heavens, but one heaven. So you got to know which heaven he's talking about, arat, and earth. So guess what that means? The heaven is talking about is mentioned in Genesis chapter 1, verses 6 through 8. That heaven is called Haraklaya, or what you now call firmament. So when it came to firmament and earth, that's the beginning of that part of creation and everything that comes around it, not the beginning of Yah. You see that? So once again, if we're going to speak correctly on it, that's a great question. If we're going to speak correctly on it, then guess what you have to do? You have to speak correctly on it. If we're going to mention what it says, let's quote what the word says, right? If we're going to talk about time, once again, the sun, the moon, and stars, which is where you get your time from. Right? Stop looking at all this other stuff. Stop looking at your satellites. Stop looking at all the, no, where you get your time from. The sun, the moon, the stars. That's your, right? Even if you believe in the universe being something completely different than what I'm explaining, relatively speaking, where you get your time from is based off of the sun, the moon, and the stars. That's how many days you know that you've walked the earth, all that stuff, right? How many years you've lived, et cetera, et cetera. The sun, the moon, the stars, right? And the sun, the moon, the stars, according to the word of Yah, according to the Bible, according to Genesis, according to Barashat, the sun, the moon, the stars were created so that you would be able to tell where you are in eternity. Eternity still exists, right? Time is in eternity. Time is not separate from it. You see? Is that truthfully speaking, nothing moves faster than the speed of darkness? Light can't escape a black hole. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, but light, light and darkness, whenever light shows up, it has no fellowship with darkness. But I get what you're saying. If we're talking about from the prism of being afraid, because even the word darkness, once again, is relative, right? Like we got to even have a conversation about that. That in of itself is a racism, white supremacy topic, if we be honest, right? What do I mean by that? Because somebody like, what? Racism, white supremacy? How does darkness have to do with anything? The darkness of the universe? Once again, the system of oppression, right? According to their science, right? The system of oppression. If you do racism, white supremacy, darkness is looked at as what? A bad thing. If black is bad and white is best, then that means that light is supposed to be better than darkness. But, right? And I get that, but the darkness concept or context that is actually talking about, if you're going to be honest, darkness meant confusion. Because remember, light, as far as the sun, the moon, the stars, right? We just said that doesn't exist until Yom Dalet, or the fourth period of time, or what we call day number 4. So when it says light and darkness in the first Yom, or the first day, go back and look at that word. It's not talking about a physical light. Remember, put on the full armor of Elachim that you might be able to go against the methods of the devil. And you put on and realize you're not wrestling against flesh and blood, but even against principalities, against the origins of things. Right? So in the original, when the Bible discusses light for the first time, it's not even talking about physical light. But we don't do the research to say this word they're using in Visigothic, English, Anglo-Saxon, Germanic, etc. language, right? What does it mean? And when you do the research, they're not talking about luminaries, which means that we're not talking about actual light, or what we could perceive in the physical as actual light. We're talking about enlightenment, just like the Bible says, you are the light. Does that mean that when you get closer to the word and the will of Yah, that persons are going to be blinded when they see you? Not necessarily. Actually can happen, but not necessarily, right? Doesn't mean that you're going to walk around with that Rick James aura. right? Those of you who get the reference, we can be friends. We can all be friends. But I'm just saying, right? It doesn't mean that you're gonna walk around with an aura. It says you are the light. What does that mean? You are enlightenment. When you show up in a room of confusion, chaos, darkness, there should be some structure in your life that causes persons to see you are enlightened. Something is, in a parabolic sense, something stands out about you. Therefore, you should be the light in dark times, in dark places, in dark ages. Even as we learned yesterday, when it says, you know, the rulers of darkness. What is it? The rulers of darkness in something. Forgive me, whatever that is. That something, that word there, it actually means of an age, right? Whatever that in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, it says the rulers of darkness in something. Whatever that something is in the Greek word they're using there to get you to the original context is actually a word telling you the age that you're in, even an evil age. So light and dark, when somebody says like in the beginning, light, dark, all these different terms, you have to see context, contextual facts, so that you don't just have a fact that doesn't reveal anything. You need a fact that's used to reveal truth. Right? And what happens with a lot of these conversations is that we're not actually having, an actual conversation, or talking about actual light, or realizing, what is even the word usage that was used originally or initially, right? Like, for example, a lot of persons don't realize that the Bible talks about dinosaurs and so-called, I guess you could say, even sea or ocean dinosaurs, if you will. It talks about them quite often. It mentions them in quite a few different scrolls or books of the Bible. And yet persons are like, you can't believe in the Bible because you don't believe in dinosaurs. And there's some Christians who don't believe in dinosaurs, but obviously the Bible disagrees with that. But once again, to get back on track, as far as talking about with racism, white supremacy changes everything up to make sure that only certain persons will be on top and at the bottom. One of the things that we have to then talk about with religion, education, etc., is that this also means that part of what's going to be done in religion is to make sure that only certain information can be used. Right? And I mean it this way. Only certain information can be used or given or be used by certain persons at a certain level. So they're not trying to give you truths that help everybody or bless everybody. Only certain persons are supposed to learn truth, even in Masonic temples. In a Masonic temple, they're supposed to, a lot of you don't realize, like, it's not just as clear cut, they worship the devil and that's it, right? That's part of it, and that's a big part. However, in these Masonic temples, their goal is to hoard information, right? Roman Catholicism do the same thing. You hoard information. How is it that you have a conversation about the color of the Messiah and you hoard that information? That benefits certain persons to know the truth, and for you to not know, to be a gatekeeper. You said that's similar to you writing a book where you created a universe that doesn't exist anywhere else outside of your book. Then you would exist outside the universe's timeline, right? And imagine you wrote the book about yourself and said that what's going to happen is for your family, right? And those who worship you, or those who barely, it wasn't, worship just means extreme respect. So those who would be part of your family and who would want things from you as their creator and ultimately as their king, because you were a king before you created them. So you basically outline the same thing that those who are around you that you created as angels, and even you yourself and you, as far as Father, Son, Holy Spirit, were three manifestations of yourself that work together. You basically make sure that everybody has to live by the same thing, including the king himself, because the king is the ruler. What is a ruler? A ruler is a measuring stick. So if I'm a king of my castle, so to speak, everybody in the castle should be looking to me to see if I follow my own rule. If I say this is an inch, if I say this is a furlong, if I say this is a cord of measurement, if I say we all need to be on the same accord of measurement, of rule, if I say therefore we all have the same canon, another word for ruler, rule, then that's all it is talking about me as a ruler. But we've been taught that we're not rulers. We've been taught that those who oppress us are supposed to be the ones who rule over us. You see? So certain information is supposed to be withheld from you. This is why the Bible even made sure, even in all the stuff that's happened. See, this is why we even got to talk about code, because it's coded language in the word. Yah knew that his family, but there might be meat in mine house, meat from my family, bring ye the tithes into the storehouse. Make sure we have a storage facility that if my family needs something, they can get it provided by you and provided by those that are part of the community. Right? That's what that's talking about. That there might be meat, that there might be something for my family. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, right? Bring ye your tribute to me as the king. The tribute is not going to be used like other tributes are used, though. The tribute is to me as the king, but I as the king will ensure that you have, that's for you. I don't even need it because I've created something for you, but I'm bigger than what I created for you. You're not giving it to me because I need it. You're giving it to me because it's a way of you reminding yourself and also letting me know that you're still on board as me being your king. But I'm going to use it for you, not for the building. You see what I'm saying? The building is fine. Let's build a building, but that's not what the tribute's for. The tribute is for what? For certain things that need to be in the kingdom, certain persons, certain order and structure, but also to make sure mainly that my people, my family, has something when they need it. So even a lot of stuff in charge of racism, white supremacy, the same person that will teach you and I don't worry about tithing will be the same person to say, give me your taxes. And our taxes 10% or more. They'll be the same persons that won't tell you, hey, go find some books in tax codes or on tax codes and try to find the tax code that says that everybody's supposed to pay taxes. I mean, all these companies and corporations, Hewlett Packard, whatever it is, Hewlett Packard is I'm sorry, that's the computer company, whatever, is it Hewitt something, whatever all these tax companies are called. I don't even remember, Liberty something, where they be having the person outside in the Statue of Liberty costume and they be flipping the sign all over and everything like that. Your taxes 30, 40, 50, 60, 70%. And anybody who pays taxes, you're in debt. But they'll tell you don't give to, and by the way, here's the wild part about it. They even have to follow universal laws and principles as well. So if you give something to an assembly, if you give something to your church, so to speak, and if your assembly or your church has their stuff together business-wise or law-wise, do you know that what you give to them can't be taxed? Which means if they turn around and give it back to you. Now, I'm not saying we're not even trying to do this. I'm just trying to tell you, if you recognize even how this works. So peep game, there's persons who have this together. They do it with their own corporations and sometimes even do it with their religious organizations, right? Sometimes these religious organizations ain't worth nothing, though. And I'm not saying do it with us because it's not our culture. It's not what I'm asking for, but I'm trying to show you something in law. I want to make that clear. If you were to give 100% of whatever you're doing to an organization that's supposed to be a religious organization that's supposed to be covered and stuff like that, all the way as one, guess what? If you gave 100% to them and then they just gave you your money back, guess what can't be taxed? What you just gave and got back. Corporations, that's why they look for 501c3s. If they give 100%, whatever they give to that 501c3, they get 100% back. They playing chess, we playing checkers. And they're sitting there telling you that you shouldn't see it in black and white. Holy Ghost, that's a bar right there. Wait a minute, they playing chess, you playing checkers, and they telling you shouldn't see it black and white. My greatness, that's a bar right there. Oh my greatness. Anyways, but I'm just saying, right? Like you're doing all this wild stuff, and you bleeding out red with your black. And they seeing everything in black and white. They playing chess, you playing checkers. And literally, there's organizations out there like, yo, they even will say, we're gonna make a charitable organization, right? I'm not even talking bad about the man. I'm telling you how this is set up. He ain't the only one to set it up this way. There's a lot of preachers that I know that get to certain levels or whatever that you might not know how big they are, but where they are, they big time. They got multiple churches and all this stuff. And there's some of these cats I've seen. I haven't sat under per se, but I've been invited to preach at their places. And they'll write something and then they'll be like, like the biggest, well, this is not true anymore. But at one point, the biggest offering I ever got from a place at preaching at one point was like $1,000. But the way that they did it, the church gave me $500, and then the pastor I didn't know how big he was at the time. He just invited me to come preach, and he didn't really know me from Adam, so to speak. But he knew, he could see like the spirit on me, and I came to support something else they were doing. So he just invited me to come down and preach, and I was like, wow, you know, because I know the place I was going to is huge, right? It's a huge edifice, and it's one of those places like the church itself or the worship, the sanctuary part is like huge, but then you go into the other parts, you're like, oh, this is like a whole little mini city type thing, right? And so they gave me 500, but then the pastor gave me, he wrote me a check for 500, but it was from his for-profit. And so what a lot of persons do is you have a for-profit and a non-profit. How do you make that work? Well, your for-profit gives to your non-profit. Your non-profit then turns around and supports the for-profit, but the non-profit ain't getting taxed anyways. And when the non-profit gives back to the for-profit is like, this is a gift. And we can be mad at them and be like, oh, they just keeping your money, blah, blah. No. Like, know the game. We're not teaching it. And then when we offer it to be taught, a lot of us be like, that's extra, I don't really need, or you don't believe that you have a right to that tree, right? You don't believe you have a right to be safe. Matter of fact, if you set up your business, especially if you set it up as a certain type of corporation, whatever business you have, guess what? When you set that thing up, you're not supposed to get taxed on everything you make. You're only supposed to get taxed on what's left. And if you can find a way to make sure that nothing's left, you can't be taxed. So even if you don't want to go through the process of making sure you have sovereignty, and by your way, your business can't necessarily, especially if it's going to be a corporation, it can't be considered to be a natural person. It has to be an artificial person. So it's still taxable. You got to know law. Just because you can make sure that you know you're not taxable and do some things to make sure you can't be taxed, right? Don't treat your business like it's a real person. Your business is an artificial person. It belongs to the public, right? If you're gonna do it the right way. That being said, though, even your business that belongs to the public, it does public business, it's an artificial person, and that artificial person should only be taxed off of what's left over. If you ever comprehended, therefore, especially those of you who are going to remain artificial persons, and all of us have to deal with our artificial person for the rest of our lives, unfortunately, it is what it is. If you're going to realize that you are an artificial person in the corporation as well, then you got to start asking, why am I being taxed on everything? I should only be taxed on what's left over. If you're taking from me, this is why ultimately, if you do your stuff right, they have to pay you back. How you pay me back? If everything's supposed to be taxed. No, they pay you back when you show that, hey, you're taking stuff that doesn't even belong to you. So at some point, you got to give me back what's mine. Now, you need to take classes and be informed and be taught, because some of y'all just going to try to do this randomly without any training, but you need to be taught this, and but you haven't even, some of you never even heard this. But racism, white supremacy says not only should you not hear it, even so-called white person shouldn't hear it, because racism, white supremacy is not trying to benefit everybody. It's only trying to benefit the so-called pastors and leaders of racism, white supremacy. Oh, come on. I know you don't want to hear that. But you got this thing twisted. When somebody talks about racism, white supremacy, we're not saying that all white people are guilty of it. Because all white people ain't racist white supremacists. And even if they want to be, as far as being included in the organization, a lot of the ones in the organization, they too poor and impoverished to make any dent on anything anyways. This is why it's always amazing to me that you think of a David Duke, you think of a Donald Trump, you think of a Ted Cruz, all these different persons, a Kid Rock. Like, these cats don't care about you. Mitch McConnell, these cats ain't fighting for you. They fighting for the bottom line. They fighting for their money. They fighting to keep what they have, the power that they have. They have power over what you eat, what you wear, right? What you make, how you operate, where you shop. You fighting the lower, if you fighting for, and by the way, let us not get twisted on that, because some of y'all think racism, white supremacy is only on the right. Right? Abraham Lincoln was leftist, even though he was Republican, and he ain't like you, and he was one of you. Dwight D. Eisenhower ain't like you, and he was one of you, and he was part black too. Look up his mama. President Obama said that he wasn't going to do anything for you, but at the same time made sure he did something for LGBTQ plus culture, which ultimately gets a lot of his reference points and his game and his money through racism, white supremacy. Look up what BLM week looks like in your children's school when they're going to be forced next year, January, February, somewhere, they're going to be taught from a BLM pyramid of 13 points, no matter what their age range is. And I promise you, when you look at it, it's racism, white supremacy. They're going to have 4 things out of 13 that deal with Black lives, out of Black Lives Matter, and they're going to tell you why it's LGBTQ plus. I know, be mad, be frustrated, say that I'm a hater, say that I don't like their humanity, put all these labels and stuff on me. I'm telling you a truth. I'm telling you the real. I'm giving you the game. This is a religion that's preached from pulpits all around the world. This is why when you go to court, your judge wears a priestly robe. Why does your judge wear a priestly robe if it's not a religion? Why does the honorable whomever have to be dressed like a priest? Why does every president have to say God bless America at the end of every speech? These are things that we just go along with. But this is real stuff. Why is it that it's one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all? And you never even thought about the Pledge of Allegiance, right? What is it? I be forgetting this sometimes. But I pledge allegiance, so you pledge allegiance to the flag. Flag means standard of the United States, the corporation of America, and to the republic, the kingdom, for which it stands, right? One nation, you got to be in this nation, be part of the people, under God, right? Whoever they worship, their Father God, indivisible. You can't divide from it. You got to be one with it. With liberty, liberties are what you're allowed to do, and justice through the prism of the corporation for all. That's the Pledge of Allegiance. And then that corporation you pledged to, when it was a country, the United States of America, a black person wasn't considered to be a person. So how could you be we the people? People means nation. And this is one of the reasons why you have to be taught to get away from yourself. You have to be taught to get away from yourself because you're not supposed to be a people. You're not supposed to be a nation. How you doing, Sister Angela? Right? We the people was never talking about you and I, not talking about Negroes. Just because a Negro gets to sit in a seat and hold a seat warm doesn't mean that he's actually doing anything of any effect. Y'all remember there used to be a term for persons in sports that held seats warm? You called them bench warmers. Why you call them a bench warmer? You on the team, but you ain't getting off that bench. You ain't the 6th man, 7th man, 8th man, 9th man. You a bench warmer. You warm the bench. When I come down to sit and they call timeout and we say break and all that stuff, you get up and you let me sit down and you supposed to clap and cheer me on. You on the team, but you ain't doing nothing. You ain't coaching. You ain't assistant coaching. You a bench warmer. Know your role. Know your place. Right? You mess around too much, the star player will get you out of here. And we got a lot of bench warmers, especially when it comes to religion. Let me get a seat at the table, Master. I'll preach whatever you say. I'll go before Congress, or I'll meet with Donald Trump, and I'll tell Donald Trump in the presence of John Gray and all of them, hey, you're the first black president, even though you just came from Obama, and even though there were other ones before you. I'm a bench warmer. I'll do whatever I got to do. I'll say whatever I got to say. I'll live however you say I got to live. I'll let my people look bad. I'll give Balaam doctrine. I'm a bench warmer. I know what my role is. They play their role well. Now, I'm not saying we don't want bench warmers here. We want everybody to get in the game, but you got to know the game first. There's a lot of preachers that are bench warmers. I'm not saying they belong on the bench. In the kingdom, they should learn how to play and play their role so well that we need them in the game. I want a rotation of 12, not just a rotation of 5. If you get basketball, it's a basketball reference. 5 people on the court. Okay, but I want persons that can come in and out. I want sometimes for the persons who are the star players, they need rest too. I need somebody else to come in that, hey, this star player may not be the best against this star player, so I can have somebody come off the bench and they actually can play defense or have an offense that throws their other person's defense off and gets them tired where their offense is thrown off. Right? There's levels to it, but there's a lot of persons who all you are bench warmers on the side of oppression, and you're happy that as long look a bench warmer in the NBA gets a nice little chunk of change now. You can be a bench warmer in the NBA and still make $10 million a year. Matter of fact, there's some persons that know they're going to enter into bench warmer phase. In other words, when they get older, they know when they get to a certain age, they're going to have a problem. They're going to get older, right? And as you get older, you're not going to be able to play the game the way that you used to. So what do? You keep playing, you keep playing, you keep playing, but eventually you keep trying to get a payday. So your first payday is called your rookie payday. No matter if you get paid a lot or you get paid just a little bit, just get paid the first time. Do your first 2-3 years, and once you do that, they're going to realize how great you are. You get greater and you get your actual first payday. That's the blessing. That's the one that's really going to change your family's life. You make sure you really work hard and you really do whatever you got to do. But then if you really blessed enough and you're going to actually play longer than the average player does, then you're going to get a third payday. That's when you really are like you breaking the bank, and you don't know after that if you're going to be really great or not. But you get that really big payday, because what if your play goes down? Even if you become a bench warmer, hey, at least you got paid. So even if you hurting the team now, it don't matter, right? And then some persons are blessed to where they can even get a fourth really big payday. You get that fourth really big payday, persons are going off of what you used to do, hoping that maybe you'll get past your injuries or your age, or you just have 1, maybe 2 years where you can really show them stuff, and then the rest of it, they know they're going to be losing money, but hey, at least maybe they won a championship, or they got enough notoriety they could sign somebody else with you or after you to be able to continue to have things moving. But there's a lot of persons that are about getting that payday, and then they're like, hey, let me just sit on the bench, I'm cool. There's a lot of persons at your job, they ain't even worried about doing nothing no more. Hey, shoot, as long as I get paid, I'm cool. Tell me what to do, whatever. I clock in, I clock out, including mentally. I don't even care. I don't care I don't care if my people gonna get any opportunity for this or not. You wild and asking me to go out of my way to do this or whatever. What if somebody takes my bread? What if somebody takes money off my table? There's a lot of bench warmers out there, but preachers included, pastors included, presiding prelates included, archbishops included, popes included, who their whole responsibility is, hey, yo, man, I'll set it out. I'm trying to get to this level, and then I ain't trying to do nothing else. This is something that's actually widely known, and I know our time is up, so I'm done. But so after this, I'm done. This is something that's widely known and widely accepted. Amen, Sister Audrey, it exists, right? It's something that's widely known and widely accepted, and Wagwan, by the way. If you are somebody who is dealing with, how may I say this? I forget what the term is called. I don't know if somebody can help me or check me on the code, but the term that's used. But there's a term that's used basically where there are persons who get hired, and basically they get hired just because they stuck around long enough, and nobody really checks to see if they're qualified, but they get promoted, right? So they get promoted just because they, hey, so-and-so been faithful, they've been showing up, hey, great, and everything. It seems like they know everything on the level of team member. But then when it's time to go from team member to assistant manager, they get hired. What you call it? Grandfathered in? Yeah. It's a certain term. It's seniority, but it's not like that's what they use. But there's like a term for it. There's like an actual physical term, or for persons who study, Elder Alma, by the way, if you ever need help with a resume, she'll help you out, or at least get you and go in the right place. But she's very great at writing resumes. She helps a lot of persons to get jobs and things like that, right? And so, by the way, those of you ministerial staff, when we're working on getting these bios updated, if you need help, let us know. But they put all this stuff in, and so they'll know, oh, okay, so and so's great at being a team member. So since they're great at being a team member, we'll just assume that they're great at being an assistant manager. They become assistant manager, and somebody like, ooh, but they won't put you back to being a team member. They won't demote you. They need somebody to fill that position. And so even if you end up terrible staying there, they're hoping that someday you'll get better. But maybe you're great at being an assistant manager. You become the manager of whatever section you're in, right? Mailroom manager, something like that. I don't know. Now you become the manager. Somebody goes, oh, you know, oh, what's going on, right? But they were never really manager material. They've never been trained to be a manager. They're a great work person. They can even work in every area. But if you were to say manage every area, that's different, right? Then if you would go for that, but there's persons where they do that. So there's persons that have gotten promotions just because a slot needed to be filled and somebody said, give it to them. They've been here long. Give it to them. They feel, they know how to fill the quota as a worker bee. Go ahead and make them somebody's in charge. And that person's not really that great. And so that person then gets stuck in a position, but they'll stay in a position 20, 30 years. And after a while, they're just like, hey, I'm getting paid, whatever, who cares? And you'll see even their work ethic, even if they weren't doing great work, they had a great work ethic, a great drive. Now that disappears, right? So you'll see a lot of that stuff happen to where persons are put into positions that they don't deserve, or positions that somebody just put them in just because. So sometimes even in the system, that happens too. Hey, so-and-so's the token, give the token a chance. The token can't even really do anything, but they token real well. And so sometimes even the white so-called racists and white supremacists, so-called white persons who get upset at DEI hires and stuff like that, don't even realize you put tokens in. You didn't actually hire somebody based off of, even if you needed a black person to make your company look like you were diverse. So when you go to get your contract, somebody can say, oh, you hire different persons. You never thought to yourself, don't give it to your boy just because he's your boy. Religious-wise, this happens a lot too, where you have, and to answer the question that was even given to us, I think last night, right? This further even explains one of the questions that was asked. Or I gave a long explanation last night, but this even further explains it. You have a lot of persons who are friendly to the good old boy system. Even if they're in the so-called black church, they're friendly to the good old boy system. So in being in this good old boy system, that's they basically don't realize, like with Puffy. Why do you guys think Puffy did what he did? You guys think that just Puffy evil, blah blah, whatever. Puff Daddy went to HBCU, which is basically blackface on a white institution, right? Puffy he worked for free and he would use his connects to get white individuals seeing that hip hop was becoming a thing, and that especially gangster rap was becoming a big thing. They was like, yo, Puffy, you be the person to get this and this and this done. Also, too, Puffy himself, when he starts coming up, right, he's the token. And all the black persons who want to get money from the white person, they go through Puff, right? But then guess what? When Puff starts coming up, he has to have the same stuff he did to others done to him. I'm not making excuses for the man. I'm just telling you there's something that we forget. There's steps and there's levels. So he has to get done to him what's done he does to others. So he doesn't find a problem with it after a while, because that's what allegedly a Jimmy Iovine or a Lucian or a Leor Cohen, if I'm saying his name. I know Leor is his first name. I might not have the right last name right. But these are what these persons do, allegedly. And if that's what they're going to do to you, and that's how you got your opportunity, you think that's what you're supposed to do to others. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying righteousness shouldn't have won out in his thought process. I'm telling you it's greater than what you think. Once again, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. You're not looking at the principalities, the powers, which, right, the ability to digest and make correct decisions, the rulers of darkness, right? The rulers of the world of darkness, the rulers of the system that's dark, that's twisted, right? And even the wickedness that's in places that should be heavenly. Remember, when it says wickedness in high places, that we looked at that term is actually saying that it's pneumatical thought, stoic thought that marries the soul, spirit, and body together, where persons are trying to utilize that in places that should be heavenly. That there are fights going on in what places that should be heavenly, but they're jacked up. So it's deeper and darker than that. That's why you must be the light. Anyways, that being said, prayerfully you guys got something out of this series that will bless you for generations to come, will help you with even some homeschooling stuff, or when you deal with racism or somebody asks you a question about racism, Prayerfully, you'll be able to see it not just from the physical aspect, but from the spiritual aspect as well. It is time for me to get on the road and pray for us. Pray for the snow subsides a little bit. I got about an hour trip to get back to the crib, or get back. I gotta stop calling. I've been calling it the crib lately. Get back to the house. Hopefully, you guys are being safe. 12 Myths of Christmas is finished, but we still will meet this evening. Remember, I want you to be 15 or older if you're going to meet with us later. So it'll be the same link, but it's going to be for the adults today. All right. I'm trying to work it out with those who are going to be, we might try to do something later on this week for the babies, and adults will be invited to that as well. But for the babies to watch, we got to find something that doesn't have too much craziness. All of us are going to have craziness, but we're going to try to find something that doesn't have as much craziness in it that the babies can watch. So we'll watch something on their level later this week to let them have fun. Amen. All right. We won't do anything on Christmas Day other than on Wednesday. I will be on to talk about the truth about Christmas, but there'll be no other stuff on Christmas Day on Wednesday. So if you're looking for something tomorrow, you're not going to find me outside of the live session in the Rising. All right. But love y'all to life. You guys take care. If you happen to be, some of y'all might happen to still travel, try to go to different stuff, or you just got to get stuff done, going to work, your job, whatever the case might be. Please be careful. You know, these folks is crazy out here on these holy days. They're going to be liquored up, eggnogged up, all that stuff like that. Person's going to be mad about stuff. They're going to be making mad dashes to buy this and buy that and fighting persons for the last this or that because they forgot to go Christmas shopping or whatever. Please just be careful out here. We honor y'all, love y'all to life. Don't forget Thursday Rising Prayer. Don't forget Thursday is Q&A. Friday we're going to start a new series that's going to we're going to use to make our official Shabbat protocol out of. So please attend that if you can in the Risings. We're actually going to talk about some music stuff because we're going to finish Ephesians series. So for the Thursday evening, starting Thursday evening, the last few evening sessions will be dealing with music. So we're going to talk about some interesting things in that as far as music and some of the stuff that's going on in modern times today. Yeah, tomorrow is Wednesday, right? So I'll be on tomorrow, Christmas Day, just to talk about the truth about Christmas, not to celebrate it, and then we won't have anything else for that day, at least as far as what I'm going to be doing. Don't forget Saturday, Women in Red. We're going to make sure we get that information out. I've been putting a little bit of information and posting a few things as far as the ingredients for the tea and everything, but I'm going to make sure I'm more diligent with that. You'll be able to find it on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram. I'll try to put a video together for Clapper, and we'll put it on what is that? WhatsApp. I'll even try to see if I can put some of it on Lemon 8 app that we've been talking about that we'll utilize just in case all the stuff happens with TikTok. Once again, TikTok's not going to be canceled, but they're going to have it to where you can't download TikTok. So just in case you stop using TikTok or think that you can't find it, or maybe it gets shut down, who knows? If you want to start looking at Lemon 8 app, LEMON, the number 8, Lemon 8, you can go on there and we'll start posting stuff on there. Matter of fact, maybe I'll just make sure for now, the only thing I'll post on there will be the Women in Red stuff that we'll be posting. But wherever you go, so that'll be the only thing you can find on there. But we'll put it in different places. Don't forget that'll be 7:00 p.m. Eastern New York time on Saturday. And so Saturday there won't be any meeting, anything like that. The only thing we'll have is our regular scheduled stuff. We'll have 8 a.m. Eastern New York time live session on Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern New York time podcast with Minister Yasav, and 11 a.m. Eastern New York time Shabbat school for the babies. And then the only other thing we'll have on Saturday will be Women in Red, December 28th, 7:00 p.m. Eastern New York time. Sisters, once again, you're invited to come on, show yourself on Zoom the entire time if you can, make tea with us and everything. Wear your best red, if you got fancy hats even and all that stuff, it is a tea. It's an attire tea service. I've been posting it on our shout outs and stuff. I will not be able to do a shout out today, unfortunately. I'll try to make up for it this evening and put the stuff up today, but we'll be posting different things in different places for you all to see. And I'll make sure even ministerial staff that I try to send it to you all as well. So if somebody asks you for it, you guys can be able to give it. And even those who make phone calls and stuff for us, I'll try to see if I can send it to you all as well. So you can also send it out to those who are in your area or under your guys. And thank you in advance for doing that. So love y'all to life. Pray for me. I'm gonna get on the road. I shall see you guys very soon. Thank you, God. Thank you all for your prayers. Love y'all to life. Um, Continue to be together once again. We'll meet up tonight, not for 12 myths, but for the adult videos concerning. All right, let's be adult about the word adult videos, but a video that we want you to be 15 or older to be able to watch. Okay, and we'll be dealing with Neely Fuller Jr. And we'll see you tomorrow, tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time as we cleanse out. We'll see you tonight as we. I'm tired. We'll see you tonight as we clean out or finish as well the series of Ephesians tonight. Praise y'all. Alrighty. So love y'all to life. You all take care. I'm gonna go ahead and get on the road and get back to my family and love on them and try to get some chores and stuff done that I can before it's time to do the rest. So you guys take care. Love y'all to life. I had sent out a message. I don't know if Sister Taya and Bruder Charlie I sent y'all a message if maybe we can try to meet up today if you guys are available to do so. I didn't get a chance to check my text messages yet. But thank you all. Love y'all. Pray for us. We're praying for you. Pray for Brother Thomas and his family. Pray for Brother Craig and his family as well. And somebody please hold me accountable for Big Brother Thomas. Make sure that we get the send something to him from SOC to the address that we need to. And I'm gonna try to send a letter as well so we can make sure a letter's sent for the family in time for the funeral. So sorry. Love you all to life. You all take care. And be strong and courageous and be strong in the power of his might. And let us put on the full armor of Yah, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Right? So racism, white supremacy is something that we need to create a system to make sure we're not in that system so we don't have to wrestle with that foolishness anymore. Love y'all to life. Take care. We give our honor and praise to the Most High. We give our praise and honor to him. For my wife, the Honorable Alma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. And remember, as always, family, that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom. Peace. Take care.